Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto had enough of constant beatings and decided to left Konoha on the age of 7. Part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. There's the demon. Quick after it. Don't let it escape. Kill it. Damn it. Why? Why they keep on doing this? Is the thought of a kid not older than 7 years old as he tried to outrun his pursuers. His blonde hair is a mess and covered by blood, his blood, thanks to some villagers who throw a stone which hit him right on the head, although if you try to look at his head, no such wound could be seen. His blue eyes show nothing but pain and sadness, pain as he had been treated so badly by someone he didn't even know, someone who had accused him for something he never done, and sadness because he got that treatment from all of the people from his village, except a few who he could count with his fingers. I've never did anything to them, heck I didn't even know them, but why? Even my own mother treat me like I'm not there. True to his thought, even his mother never show him any affection. Well, in one way she had never abused him physically, but her verbal abuse was bad enough. She did prepare some food for him sometimes, which is very rare, but she never want to talk to him, never want to touch him, even when he try and gave her a present she would either throw it away or destroy it in front of him. The boy thought was cut short as he could feel a sharp object hit his leg which made him fall to the ground, and as he looked down, he could see a kunai had pierced his leg which made blood covered his leg. "But you demon." Someone from the mob said, which he could easily identify as a shinobi from the headband on the person's arm. "Alright everyone. Let's avenge the fourth." With that said, peoples from the mob start to hit him with everything, from blunt thing like a wood stick to something sharp and deadly like a sword and knife. The boy just stayed there not doing anything as he know it was futile from a lot of experience he got in the past. His consciousness start to fade, but before he passed out he could heard a familiar voice which seems like a yell, and the next thing he could sense was a blue and white light, which was continued by a scream of some people around him. When he realized that the mobs had stopped attacking him, he know that someone he know had saved him, which made him smile a bit before he passed out on the spot a few minutes before. Damn those villagers. They're at it again. A furious Anbu with a dog mask jumped from roof to roof with an astounding speed, even some of his teammate had trouble on following him, but they all didn't bother to think about it. They know that their captain is really angry right now, and anger somehow could made a human pass his own limit. "Naruto, please be alright until I arrive," was the only thought which the dog Anbu keep on thinking over and over again on his head. Finally he had arrived where the boy he had been looking for the last hour, but the scene was definitely not the one he want to see. The boy is lying on the ground with a kunai embedded on his leg and people around him beating the day out of him. Not able to control his anger anymore, he made some hand seals before jumping toward the mob while yelling the only word in his head. "Urkiri." A streak of blue and white lightning appear on his hand, and he quickly stabbed the first person he could reach. He didn't stop there as he used the same lightning on each and everyone who was beating the boy before he was finally stopped by his Anbu teammate with a weasel mask. Kakashi-sen, stop it. Don't waste your time on these idiots. We need to help Naruto-sen first. His voice quickly put some sense on the dog Anbu as he quickly turned toward the boy before picking him up gently and turned toward the weasel Anbu. "Itachi, you better capture all those people and hand them to Ibiki or you'll be the first on my list of people who I'll beat up after this," he said before jumping away toward the hospital, not even waiting from the response as he had already know the answer when he heard some blasts from behind which come just after the ground was shaking, a sign from a Doton Justu being used. A few hours later in the hospital. "Kakashi, how is Naruto doing?" The said person look up from the place he was sitting to see a face of an old grandpa which he and all the people in the village refers as the Sandame Hokage. The doctor who examined him said that he had passed the critical condition, also that he was lucky I had took him as fast as I had. Kakashi said with a lot of sadness on his voice before he took sight of another person behind the Sandame and give a light smile. "I need to thank you for that, Itachi. If you didn't stop me at that time, I may still try to kill all those mobs now." The weasel Anbu just nodded his head a bit. "You're welcome, just like you I also didn't like those person at all, but Naruto was in a critical condition and you're the fastest on Anbu. By the way, we had managed to capture those mobs which consist of 10 shinobis and 20 civilians, all of them are having a nice chat with Ibiki now." The three keep on chatting for a while before Sandame and Itachi decided to return back. Sandame, since he had to do some paperworks, while Itachi had some family business. Kakashi decided to stay and guard on Naruto since he doesn't believe the guards or some of the doctors on the hospitals, beside he doesn't had any living relative anymore, so there won't be a problem for him even if he had to stay on the hospital tonight. The next morning, "Ugh," the boy muttered as he tried to open his eyes just to look at the familiar sight for him, the hospital ceilings. "So I'm here again, huh?" Just as he said those words and tried to look around, the door got slammed open and his gaze quickly went to the figure who had a silver hair which defied gravity and had almost all of his face covered by mask and Konoha headband except his right eye. Naruto, you're finally awake. How do you feel now? Kakashi asked while walking quickly toward the bed before taking a chair and sat beside the bed. Naruto looked at Kakashi's face for a moment before return his gaze at the ceiling. Well, like usual maybe. After all, I always recovered fast, but I wonder if it was worth it since, even if I recovered, I always ended up here again and again. The tone Naruto had used really struck Kakashi, since he could catch the pain and sadness Naruto had used, and although he wanted to try cheering him, he of all the person know that Naruto's words are true. What is the meaning to had a fast healing if you will return to the hospital only a day after you got out from it? The two sat in silence before they heard a knock on the door, and when the person entered, Naruto smiled a bit at seeing that Sandaime had gave him a visit. He had known both Sandaime and Kakashi really well, to him they are a grandpa and an uncle he had never had. Well, hello Oji-chan, how's the paperworks? Naruto asked while giggling, which made Sandaime hit his face and Kakashi laugh a bit since Naruto had heard so many complaints from the Sandaime about the cage's natural enemy. Don't remind me of them, Naruto, to tell you the truth, I'd rather be out there fighting 100 shinobis than stay here and do the paperworks. Sandaime said in a defeated tone, and Naruto could swear that he had heard the old man mutter something about killing himself or finding a successor only for avoiding paperworks. Well, enough about that. Now tell me how you felt, Naruto, also is there anything that I can help? Sandaime said, trying his best to forget about the enemies waiting for him in his office. Naruto think a bit before he come to something that he had planned for some time, although it was not a really good one. I do have one thing to ask you, Jiji. Naruto said in a sad tone. Hearing that the two adults raised their eyebrows as they never heard Naruto ask something with that kind of tone, usually when he asked for something he would ask it with a lot of cheery energy. Seeing that Naruto is really desperate to ask help, Sandaime couldn't help but decided to help. Sure Naruto, now what is your wish? Sandaime asked while smiling. Naruto hesitated a bit, but soon he moves his body and opened a drawer next to Kakashi and pulls something from it, something that looks like a box with a ribbon attached to it. He looked toward it with a sad eyes before turning back to the adults in the room. Why, you see, tomorrow is my birthdays. The two adults couldn't help but cringed at the expressions on Naruto's face. They know that to Naruto birthdays mean more extreme beatings and a lot more injuries than normal, but they decided to keep silent as they know Naruto still haven't finished talking. The truth is, I don't know when my mother's birthdays was, so I always gave her a present in my birthdays. But Naruto couldn't help but let a single tear come out from his eyes, which made Kakashi and Sandaime hung their head in shame as they know what Naruto's mother had done with all the present he gave her. I want that she received this one at the very least, so Naruto moved the hand which held the box until it was in front of Sandaime. Please give it to her, but don't said that this is from me, tell her that this is from you, that way she will take it with her, I hope. The last two words were very low, but being experienced ninja the two still managed to heard it. Sighing, Sandaime put his hand on Naruto's and took the box. I understand, Naruto, I will make sure that she received this. I will give this to her myself, so please cheer up, okay? Naruto smiled a little as Sandaime put his hand on Naruto's shoulder, which made both Sandaime and Kakashi smiled back at him warmly. By the way, Naruto, Kakashi said, trying to break the silence between them, if we're allowed to know, what is inside that box and how do you get it? Naruto looked toward the box a bit before lifting his head up, trying to remember the time he found it. It was some kind of jewelry if I'm not mistaken. I found it 3 days ago, after I managed to lost some peoples who tried to beat me. The place was called Forest of the Dead if I'm not mistaken. Duper's eyes bulged at hearing these. Well, 1.5 I guess, a kid not even older than 7, had gone inside a forest that was considered dangerous even for some high-level shinobis, and to know that the boy had used that place of all place to hide, definitely not a story you would hear from everyone. I didn't put it in my apartment since I'm afraid that the mob would found and took it, so I put that jewelry that day inside this drawer, since I know that no one ever used this room except me. Kakashi couldn't help but surprised at the kid in front of him. For a kid not even a genin to think that far was incredible, and he had guessed correctly about this room. Ever since the beatings on Naruto become a constant problem, Sandaime had reserved this room for Naruto, so Naruto would be able to get a medical treatment every time he got beaten. Heck, he even threatened some doctors and nurses that if they try anything funny, they would be kicked out from the hospital and got punished for some time. I see, is there anything else that I can help, Naruto? Sandaime asked again, but Naruto just shook his head. Instead he tried to get off the bed, and after finding out that he had recovered, he said a quick goodbye to the two adults and ran out of the hospital, leaving Kakashi and Sandaime inside, who smiled a bit at the door where Naruto had left before disappeared in a puff of smoke. A few moments later in a different part of Konoha, Naruto could be seen coming inside his apartment room. Ever since Sandame know about the way his mother Kushina act toward Naruto, he decided that it would be better for Naruto to live by himself, so he get Naruto a room in an apartment which located the closest to Hokage mansion. This way Sandame always managed to meet Naruto every day, and if something happened to Naruto, he could act as soon as possible, especially with Kakashi, and a few loyal Anbu decided to live on the Anbu complex, which is not far from the apartment Naruto live. I guess today is the day, huh? Naruto thought sadly while moving his bed and pull out the wooden board under it to reveal a bag and a letter. It was a hard decision for Naruto, but he can't stand the beatings anymore, so after a lot of thinking he decided to left the village, no matter how much he want to stay, as he don't want to make the people who cared for him sad. Naruto's thoughts soon come to the images of people who actually cares for him, Sandame Jiji, Inu-san, he doesn't know his true name yet, Weasel-san, Tuchi Jiji, Ayam Nichan, Haruka-sensei. His thoughts soon come toward a few Anbu who like to play with him sometimes, but the last image on his thought was the one who hit him the most, his mother. Although it may be true that she had never act like a good mother to him, heck she even give him verbal abuses a lot of time, but she had never done any physical abuses toward May had destroyed every presents he had gave to her, but sometimes she also made some food for him. Although it was always done when he was asleep, but he knows one time he was unable to sleep and he heard a voice in the kitchen so he decided to peek and he could see his mother prepare a food for him and left soon after she done it. May only happen a very few times, maybe only twice or thrice a month, but at least she did cared for him even only a little. But it will only be a memory since now he is going to left the village. It's true that he will return one day, but he's still afraid about it. What if they still think that he is a demon? What if they still want to beat him and kill him? One though once come to his mind to change his appearance, so everyone won't know who he is, but if he did that then what will happen to the people cared for him? They won't know it was him, and if he tell them the truth then what if someone actually heard about it and everyone know if he had returned? Naruto sighed at all of his thoughts, but soon he shook his head and took the bag which he had prepared days before for today. He also took the letter and silently opened the door of his apartment. After seeing that the area is clear he left quickly and go sneak toward the Hokage's mansion. It was already dark when he left, that and combined with his pranking habit which increased his stealth a lot, he managed to sneak inside and toward the Hokage's room. There was another reason as why he had asked his Oji-san to give the box to his mother, knowing him he would think hard about how to give it to her, and also to tell her that the present was given by her son without her destroying it, no matter that Naruto had asked him not to. Naruto was really lucky today as the Hokage's room was empty, so after putting the letter on his desk, Naruto sneak out from the mansion before running toward the gate stealthily. In a few moments Naruto had managed to left Konoha without getting spotted as there seems to be a commotion happening inside and combined with people busy for the festival, it was not a hard job for a kid who managed to run from Anbu for hours to break out unnoticed. This is it, now I just had to run as fast I can so I won't get caught. Naruto thought as he ran passing tree after tree, but soon he stopped when he heard some footsteps behind him. Oh no, don't tell me they had found out. I need to hide quickly. Naruto quickly got inside a bush and covered himself. It was an easy job remembering that he's still a kid and the bush was quite thick. Soon Naruto could see the source of the footsteps, but he was surprised that the person in front of him is not a Konoha ninja since he had a different symbol on his headband. The person wears some ninja clothing similar to Anbu, as the only difference where his cloth had used black on every part of it, not only that he also wear a mask that looks exactly like Kakashi's, but what made Naruto's curiousness increase was the things he carried. It looks like a kid who is younger than himself. The kid had a long black hair which fall to the person's waist as he carried that kid on his shoulder. This kid which Naruto identifies as a female, thanks to the long hair had her hand tied up and her mouth gagged, which give Naruto one assumption. This guy is kidnapping her. Too bad for Naruto, since he didn't realize that he had stepped on a stick, which made the man drop the girl, which seems to be conscious, and put his attention on the grass Naruto is in. Crap, you find out about me? I need to run. Naruto's thought got cut short as the man quickly pull a kunai and throw it toward the bush, but thanks to his experience of running from the people who want to beat him, ironically, he managed to dodge at the last second, but the problem is that now the man had spotted him clearly. What, it's just a kid. The man sighed in relief. At this moment Naruto took another glance at the girl, and since she was also looking at him, he could identify from her eyes that she is a Hyuga, since she had the same eyes as his classmate Hinata. He could see a bit similarity of this girl with Hinata, but his thought was cut as he spotted that the man had pulled another kunai. Sorry kid, but my orders was not to let any witnesses alive. With that said another kunai fly toward Naruto, but once again Naruto managed to avoid it as it hit the tree behind him, which irritate the man who pulled his blade got into a stance to attack. Naruto don't know what had got into him, but the second he saw the man coming toward him with a sword he quickly turned around to pull the kunai behind him and duck to avoid the sword. This time the man managed to scratch him, but only a little. Naruto quickly swing the kunai in his hand randomly, and since the man didn't thought that the kid in front of him would fight back, Naruto managed to hit the man at the leg since the man didn't avoid fast enough. If the man was irritated before, now he is really pissed. He managed to sneak inside Konoha and come out after kidnapping this Hyuga girl without being spotted, and now a kid who barely know how to use a kunai had hit him. The man quickly pull out some chakra, not even thinking about being spotted by Konoha ninja. This kid had ruined his pride and he will pay for it. Naruto realized that the man was getting serious as he could see that the man is performing some hand seals. He know that whatever the man was planning won't be good for him and he had to evade it, but it was all too late as the man had stopped making hand seals and is looking toward him in rage. Kaiten. Kiryu Enden. The man yelled as he pulled his mask and let loose a raging fire dragon toward the boy in front of him, not even cared that he had used a high-rank jutsu just to kill a kid not even half his age. No, the only thing he care is that the boy is going to die, and he smirk evilly as the dragon hit the kid directly and he could heard the boy scream from inside of the flame. The little girl watch in shock as the boy in front of her had got hit by a fire dragon. She start to cry as she thought that she was the reason that the boy had died. If only he didn't met this man who had kidnapped her. If only that this man wasn't told to kill all witnesses. If only she hadn't been kidnapped on the first place. She keep on crying as she see that the man is walking toward her with a wicked smile on his face, but soon she stopped crying as the man had also stopped walking as both of them realized something. The man stopped walking as he realized that there's a blast of chakra behind him from where the boy was standing, and there are two problems with these. 1. The boy could stand from dying after get hit by a blast of a high-level Kaiten jutsu, and 2. This blast of chakra he felt is definitely not a normal one, and he swear that even a Konoha genin could feel this pressure. The girl stopped crying as she could see something behind the man in front of her. She could see something which looks like a bright yellow light. She doesn't know about chakra yet, coming from inside of the smoke which are created from the blast of the fire dragon, but that isn't the one which scared her. It is two red lights which looks like a pair of eyes that she had took a glimpse when a wind removed the smoke a little. The man quickly turned around as fast as he can, but to no avail as the last thing he could see was a bright yellow streak coming toward him, and the next thing he know his stomach had been pierced through by something. He managed to grip it a little and he could feel fur. The girl doesn't look better herself. Just a moment ago she had felt sad that she had made a boy get killed. Next she felt a bit happy since the boy seems to be alive if the yellow light was any indication. Now she is scared shitless as the man who kidnapped her had been killed with just one blow. The problem is that when the man fell she couldn't see any sign of the boy. Instead the one she see in front of her is one big yellow fox around the size of a normal dog from the Inuzuka clan, as big as Kuromeru from the invasion, with its right hand full of blood of the man it had just killed. That didn't scare her much, but when she saw its eyes was when she got scared very much as the eyes are as red as the blood on its paw, the eyes that seems to be belong to the demon itself. Damn it, damn it, damn it. The thought kept being repeated inside Naruto's head as he kept running as fast as he could without any real direction. He couldn't help but to remember about the thing that had just happened a moment ago, since from all the bad experience he had ever had until now, this one was definitely the worst. So it's true after all. I am a demon. That's why those people wanted to kill me. Tears fell from his eyes as his thought returned to the peoples inside the Konoha wall, the peoples who had tried at least once to kill him every time he was alone. He continued to run while closing his eyes, not even cared if he hit something, although he was lucky or unlucky, as a moment later his leg slipped and he was thrown quite hard into a shallow river in front of him. Naruto slowly stood up while coughing as water had got inside his mouth. After managed to stood back he just stayed there with tears still flowing from his closed eyes. Little by little he tried to open his eyes, and not long afterwards he became face to face with the water below him, or to be more precise his own reflection. Flashback. What was that? What happened? Naruto looked around in confusion as he could felt that his vision had become blurry thanks to some liquid on his eyes, although he didn't know what the liquid was. Trying to fix it, Naruto closed his eyes while shaking his head, but it still didn't work, so he decided to scrub his eyes, and when he did it, he realized something was wrong with his body. He was standing on all four, his face seemed to be different, and the hand he had used to scrub his eyes feels like furs. He tried to open his eyes again and succeeded only to realize that he was standing face to face with a little girl from before. The girl had her gaze focused on him, but there was something about it that made him feel uneasy. A strange smell soon took his attention, and it made him turn his gaze toward the source which he recognized as the man who had tried to kidnap the girl. At first Naruto thought that the man had passed out when he saw him lying on the ground, but he realized that it wasn't the case as he could see a hole on his stomach. Realization soon dawned to him that the man was dead. Afraid of this, Naruto slowly moved back only to stop when he stepped on something that seemed to be a puddle. The problem was that Naruto had walked on that area just before he met these two, and he was sure that there was no puddle on the ground. He slowly looked downward, and what he saw shocked him to the core. He saw that his hands were no longer hands, instead he could saw that they had changed into two yellow paws. As if it was not bad enough, he could saw that his paw was touching a puddle of red liquid which also covered his right hand, or should he said paw. It didn't took him long to realize that the red liquid was actually blood, as he had seen it a lot of time when he was beaten, and that was when his brain start to process everything he had saw before he found out the painful truth: he had killed the man. No, this is a joke, right? Naruto turned his gaze back at the little girl in front of him. He could see that the girl still had the same gaze which she had before, but now he knew what that gaze meant. The girl was afraid of him. Realizing this, Naruto slowly stepped back as a word suddenly came to his mind, a word he had heard so many times: demon. I am a demon. That thought hit him hard. Soon he closed his eyes and shook his head in frustration, not even realizing the tears had start to pour from his eyes, something which the girl didn't miss, thanks to her gaze plastered on the yellow fox in front of her. The girl's expression softened a bit as she saw this and couldn't help but thought that maybe this fox was not as bad as it seems. Her thought was cut short though, as it suddenly turned around and started running away. MMPH, she tried to call it, but soon realized that the gag on her mouth prevent her from doing so, and soon the only thing she saw was a bright yellow streak which kept going farther and farther. End of flashback. Naruto slowly walked away from the river, still drenched from head to toe, thanks to the impact of his fall before. His thought wandered back to the reflection of himself which he saw on the water. His body had changed into the same being which had destroyed Konoha 7 years ago. His body had changed into a fox, a big yellow fox with red eyes. A moment later, all insults he had received when he was still in Konoha came back to his mind. Kill the demon. You'll pay for what you've done, demon. We'll avenge Yondaime and everyone you've killed now. The word demon kept being resounded in Naruto's mind over and over. Finally he couldn't took it anymore and yelled out in frustration, "Alpha!" For anyone not far enough to hurt it, it was more like a sad howl. Naruto passed out soon after, only to regain consciousness a moments later in a very different place. UGH, where am I? Naruto tried to pull himself up while rubbing his head when he found out that his hands seemed to be normal. He opened his eyes quickly and examined his body to find out that he was no longer a fox, which made him sigh in relief. Soon afterwards he scanned the area around him and realized that he was in some kind of a sewer. He was still confused when he spotted a light far away from him. Seeing no other way, he decided to walk toward it, only to end up in a room with a huge cage, which had a little paper with a kanji seal in the middle of it. Feeling confused by it, Naruto moved forward toward the cage, only to stop when he spotted something which looks like big red eyes inside it, the eyes which were very similar with the one he saw on his reflection. What do we have here? The little jailer had came to give me a visit. A voice came from inside of the cage. Who's there? Naruto yelled while moving away from the gate, only to tripped and fell on his, but when a big claw came out from the cage and nearly hit him. You don't have any right to question me, you puny human. The voice said before Naruto could saw a figure started to appear from inside of the cage. The figure, which looked like a big red fox who bare its fang toward him, although the one which caught Naruto's attention was the 9 blood red tails between its back legs. What? Too scared to talk, human? Okay, Naruto was pissed. He didn't knew who this fox, but it had gone too far. It had tried to attack him when he asked who it was, and now it mocked him just because he had stayed silent for a moment. Shut up, you stupid fox. Naruto shouted while pulling himself up. For your information, I'm not afraid of you, and on top of that I'm a demon and not human. The fox just laughed when it heard Naruto's statement before it returned its gaze right toward Naruto's eyes. You? A demon? Ha, don't make me laugh, stupid human. If there's a demon here, then that would be me. The great Kyuubi no Kitsune. The fox stated proudly without moving its gaze from Naruto. On the other hand, Naruto was a bit surprised at those statement, but soon he decided to speak again. You're lying. I turned into a demon just now and killed a man. Beside, the Kyuubi was killed by Yondaime. Fools. The only thing you turned into was nothing but a fox. And for your information, no one can kill a demon. Not even the Yondaime. The only thing he could do was sealing me. What? Naruto just stayed there dumbfounded while trying to process the fact he had just heard when a realization struck him. The Yondaime sealed the Kyuubi away. The villager called him a demon. He was born on the day of the Kyuubi's attack. He sealed you inside me, didn't he? Naruto turned his gaze back at Kyuubi to saw it nodded its head slowly, which made Naruto drop to his knee and hung his head down. So it was true after all. I am a demon. Stupid human. Didn't I told you that you're not a demon? I am the only demon here. Kyuubi yelled again. It may be a demon, but truth to be told, it had a sympathy for this child. Not only Kyuubi, all other demons out there won't even hurt a child if they could, as children were quite rare in the demon realm, so in one way humans are more evil than demons. Naruto lifted his head slowly until he was face to face with Kyuubi. They stayed in silence for a moment when the memory of what happened before returned to his mind. Boo, but I've just turned into a fox and killed someone. I didn't even remembered how I did it. How I can be a human if I could did that? His voice was low, but Kyuubi still managed to hurt it as it just sighed before speak again. Well kid, the reason why you didn't remember killing that man was because you had fallen into a berserk state when you activated your power. And about how you turned into a fox you better ask the person behind me yourself. Naruto was totally surprised by this, the way Kyuubi called him had changed, and its voice seems to be more kind. But the other statement was the one which took his attention, there was another person here. Naruto quickly looked around the cage until he spotted a figure which started to walk closer toward the bar, and when the figure was closed, Naruto's jaw fell to the floor before he pointed at the figure while yelling one word, Yo Yandame. Konoha village at the moment. Sandaime couldn't help but fell to his chair when he reached his office. A lot of problems had appeared in just one day. The village was in uproar when a Kumo ninja had tried for the second time to kidnap the Hyuga and almost succeeded in doing so. A really powerful blast of chakra was sensed from the forest, and when Anbu examined it, they found said kidnapper dead with a hole on his stomach, while the Hyuga he kidnapped, which was the second daughter of the Hyuga head, was found without a scratch on her body. To make things worse, when she was asked about what had happened, she only said that she was saved by a boy who transformed into Big Yellow Fox before said fox ran away. The Ashi was really happy that her daughter was rescued, but the council was quite angry that of all things it must be a fox who had saved her. Some of them even gave stupid comments that they should find that fox and kill it for defiling one of Konoha's elite clan's heiress. The comment which made them appointed to the hospital as one angry Hyuga Hiashi had closed all their tenketsus for giving such comments about his daughter's savior, before reminding them that if not for that fox Kumo would have managed to obtain the Byakugan, and they won't know which village had done it, as the identity of the kidnapper was only known after they had found his body. And now here we had one tired Sandaime on his chair trying to remember everything which had happened before his thought lingered toward the boy who had transformed into a fox to save the Hyuga heiress. There was only one person he knew who was able to turn into a fox. The problem is that the person was dead, so the only possibility left was his son, although there is also a possibility that there's another person who's able to change into a fox as well. But after hearing that the one who turned into the fox was a boy, there were almost no doubt in his mind that that man's son was the one who had saved her. The only problem was that said boy was supposed to be inside Konoha's wall when that happened, not outside. His thought was cut short when an Anbu with a dog mask appeared in his office. It was easy to know that the Anbu was tired as he was panting and breathing heavily. So? Did you find him, Kakashi? Sandaime asked with a lot of concern on his voice. Kakashi took a glance of Sandaime's expression before he hung his head down, finding the ground to be very interesting. And no, Sandaime-sama, I've used up all my chakra to create as many cage bunshin as I could to find him. The same was done by Itachi and some other Anbu, but we couldn't find him anywhere. Sandaime pulled his head down before standing up and turned his body to face the window. I see, you can go home and rest. Tell that to the other Anbu too. But Sandaime-sama. Kakashi yelled. No, but Kakashi, if my thought was right, Naruto is already out of our reach now. My only hope is that he could take care of himself and return here someday. Sandaime-sama, what do you mean by that? Kakashi asked in a low voice. He might be tired now and Naruto might have left the village hours ago, but he is an Anbu captain. While Naruto is only a kid, he was sure that he could find Naruto and bring him back to the village if he could got the permission. Sandaime turned his body and faced Kakashi once more before sighing. I'm going to tell you a secret now, Kakashi, but promise me that you won't told anyone about it, as this is an SS class secret which is even bigger than the Kyuubi. Sandaime cursed in his mind as he really didn't want to tell anyone about this, but if he didn't he was sure that Kakashi would insist on finding Naruto. I find Sandaime-sama. Kakashi quickly agreed since from the tone Sandaime used he knew that the secret he was about to listen must be really important. Seeing this, Sandaime decided to speak again. Now, do you remember your former sensei's Hiraishin no Jutsu? Yes, I remember, but what about it? Now tell me, Kakashi, don't you feel that it is strange that he had never taught anyone about how to use it? Not even Jiraiya. Kakashi was surprised by this, but soon he realized that it was indeed strange. Sensei May thought that it will be dangerous if he taught it to just anybody, but he did taught me and Jiraiya-sama his other move, the Rasengan, so why could it be that the seal was too complicated? But Jiraiya-sama is a seal expert and also his teacher, so that must not be the problem. But what else could be the reason? Could it be that it was because no one could use it except him? If that was the case, then it could be logical that he never taught it to anybody. But what kind of jutsu that can only be used by certain person? That when the answer hit him about why Yondaime never taught anyone how to use Hiraishin bloodline limit, Sandaime nodded his head as he heard those words came from Kakashi's mouth. He saw the disbelief which was plastered on his face. It was not surprising since thanks to his promise with his former successor, he had never told anyone that Naruto was really the Yandame's son, as he feared that Naruto will be killed by Iwa or being trained to be a mindless weapon. He simply said that Yandame's child had died in childbirth and that Yandame had took Naruto since he was an abandoned child, but also told everyone that Yandame wanted his wife to took him as her son and that Naruto should be seen as a hero, something which had failed thanks to those stupid villagers who couldn't saw the difference between a prisoner and a jailer. Kakashi stood there in silence, but soon his thought returned to the blast of chakra he sensed a few moments ago. Now that he thought about it, it felt similar with the one he felt when his sensei used his famous move. So that mean Naruto is really sensei's son? Again Sandame nodded his head, but before he could said or did anything he had his collar being pulled by one angry Kakashi who yelled at him about why he never told anyone about this. Kakashi soon stopped his yelling when Sandame explained about the promise Yandame had asked him before his death. After hearing that, Kakashi released Sandame from his pole before moved toward the window and gazed at the village, while Sandame returned to his desk as if realizing something. They stayed in silence for some time before Kakashi sensed that Sandame was walking toward him before putting one hand on his shoulder. Don't worry Kakashi, Naruto will return one day. He promised to do that and he will never broke his promise. Kakashi turned toward Sandame again to saw that Sandame was holding a letter on his hand before he gave it toward Kakashi and told him to take a rest. Kakashi slowly nodded his head before disappeared in a smoke, while Sandame returned to his desk to finish the paperworks. Back to Naruto. The day could be the strangest day for Naruto. It all began with him leaving Konoha, which continued by him turning into a fox and killed somebody. Next he passed out after running without direction for hours, only to woke up inside a sewer, where he found out that he had the big bad Kyuubi sealed inside him. And now he realized that Kyuubi was not the only one sealed inside him, as in front of him, he saw his idol figure, the Yandame himself. Oh okay, I'm totally confused now. What is the meaning of this and why Yandame is here, sealed inside my body? Naruto said in confusion while Yandame shook his head, trying to find out how to told him without making him mad, while Kyuubi just snickered at the scene in front of it. Realizing that silent won't solve anything, Yandame started to spoke. Okay Naruto, I think you better sit down for a moment as this is gonna be a long one. Thankfully that done the job as Naruto nodded his head and sat down, not even cared about getting soaked by the water below him. Good, now I'll start from the beginning, so listen carefully, okay? Seeing Naruto nodded his head, Yandame started speaking again. Well, first you know me as Namikaze Minato, the Yandame Hokage. Minato pointed toward himself. Now your question was what I'm doing here getting sealed inside you, right? At this Naruto nodded again. Minato shook his head a bit before gazing upward, trying to remember that day. Well you know, at that time to seal Kyuubi here I summoned the Shinigami to help via Shiki Fuin. At first I thought that I will die after the sealing, but it seemed that the Shinigami had a bad sense of humor. At this both Minato and Kyuubi sighed while Naruto just tilted his head in confusion. You see, Shiki Fuin was actually a way to seal a soul by sacrificing the soul of the user. The problem was that although it was called sealing, the soul wasn't supposed to be contained in something like what happened to Kyuubi. What do you mean? Isn't that what a seal's supposed to do? Naruto asked. Well, normal seal yes. But Shiki Fuin is no normal seal. Naruto looked even more confused, but before he could ask, Minato had spoke again. The Shiki Fuin is a seal which will seal the soul of the target and the user inside the Shinigami's stomach, where the two souls will fight for eternity. Fight for eternity? Yup, now the problem here is that I couldn't seal Kyuubi inside myself, since my body won't stand it and I'll probably die before it was complete, as the only one could hold the power of Kyuubi is a newborn child. So you chooses me? Naruto asked with a bit anger this time. Yes, and for what reason? I'll tell you that later, but now let's go back to the subject. After I did that, Kyuubi's soul was sealed inside you, so the question is, if mine got sealed inside Shinigami's stomach, what will I be doing now? Naruto got confused at this and started thinking his soul was supposed to fight Kyuubi's for eternity, but Kyuubi's soul was sealed inside me, so I'm nothing. Minato grinned a bit after hearing that. Bingo, I was supposed to do nothing as I won't have any soul to fight, but that Shinigami team, Kyuubi and Naruto. Sweat dropped when Minato said this, said that it won't be fair, so I don't know Shinigami's gender, so I'll stick with a male, change the rule a bit, so instead of being sealed inside his stomach, he sealed both my soul and Kyuubi's inside you. You deserved it anyway for trying to trick Shinigami-sama. Kyuubi said while hit Minato's head with its paw. What was that, you overgrown furball? Minato yelled and kicked Kyuubi's paw, which made Naruto sweat dropped, since the two suddenly started to brawl while yelling at each other in one way they do fight for eternity. Was the only thought crossed his mind before he finally had enough at the fight in front of him. Alright, stop at this instant. You still had to explain why you picked me as the container. The two quickly stopped fighting when they heard this and quickly faced Naruto once more. Jazz, can't you said that louder? Seems your appearance wasn't the only thing you got from your stupid father. Kyuubi said while using one of its tail to clean its ears and another to smack Minato's head. What? He's my father, Naruto yelled while pointing at Minato, while said person just faced Kyuubi with an irritated look. Great job you stupid fox. Well thank you for your praise. Kyuubi said in sarcastic tone. Minato was about to said something again, but realized now is not the time for that. Minato slowly turned back to his son while scratching his head. Well, guess you found out now son. What do you mean you found out son? How could you did that to me? Do you know how painful my life was because of this? Naruto yelled. I know. Minato said simply. Yes, there's no way you would wait. Naruto's yell stopped quickly, and when he took a glance at his father, he could saw that he seemed really sad. Yes, I know it Naruto. The truth is both Kyuubi and me can see whatever you see outside, so we know everything about your childhood and about those stupid villagers. Minato said the last word with venom on his voice. Believe it or not Naruto, I had personally told Sandaime Jiji before I died to tell the villagers to see you as a hero, but it seemed that I had made a really big miscalculations. Minato couldn't help but put his head down in shame, which made Naruto's opinion toward him quickly changed. Well, I guess it's alright then. But tell my one thing please, why me? Minato rose his head slowly until his gaze returned back to Naruto. That's because I was a Hokage Naruto, I couldn't sacrifice another people's child if I can help it. Besides I believe in you Naruto, I believe that you will be able to use Kyuubi's power for good and that you won't use it to do something worse than what Kyuubi here had done. Minato's words got two different reactions, an understanding nod from Naruto and a hit on the head from Kyuubi. Stupid fox. What did you hit me for now? For those comment you just gave. I had told you before that I was tricked when I attacked Konoha. Kyuubi yelled while smacking Minato's head once more. You were tricked? Naruto asked while tilting his head. Kyuubi sighed a bit before turning its gaze toward Naruto. Well long story short, around 7 years ago a man named Orochimaru came and asked me to give him power, but since I refused, he killed all my kids when I left to find some food for them. Driven by anger I went to Konoha to demand that they gave that snake bastard to me so I could kill him, but just as I arrived at Konoha, several ninja attacked me, so I fought back and soon all of Konoha ninjas started attacking me until this so-called Yondaime came at me on top of a big frog. Hey, I didn't know that either. Besides, I told all my ninja to stand on guard and don't attack unless you attack first. Those ninjas that attacked you must be Orochimaru's underlings. Minato yelled trying to stated that it was not his fault. Okay Naruto said. Oh by the way Naruto there's still another thing I need to tell you, it's about your transformation. Minato quickly turned his gaze from Kyuubi. Oh that's right Naruto hung his head as those words had made him remembered the man he had killed. Realized this Minato quickly tried to help. Hey Naruto. Naruto raised his head to face his father. Listen here okay, you may had killed that man, but it was for the best. If you didn't killed him he would have killed you and next he will take that Hyuga girl away and make her into either a breeding factory or a lab rat. After hearing that Naruto thought for a moment and couldn't help but agree with his father, he may had killed someone, but it was for a good reason, he didn't really cared about himself, but that girl was still little and there is no way Naruto would let anything happen to her if he could help it. Naruto let a small smile graced his lip before he suddenly remembered something. Wait a sec, that girl. I left her in that forest alone. Naruto panicked all of a sudden as he remembered that the girl was still tied up and gagged. Minato and Kyuubi both saw this and sighed. Calm yourself will you? Before you left I felt some Anbu were moving toward that direction, they must have helped her already. You're sure? Naruto asked quickly. Don't worry Naruto, they might not know where the girl was, but those chakra you blast away before the transformation was strong enough to destroy the house. I'm sure that at least one Anbu had been sent to check it. Naruto sighed in relief, at least the girl is safe now. Seeing Naruto had calmed down Minato decided to continue his explanation. Well now let's continue okay, you see the reason your body turned into a fox out there was because you had accidentally activate your bloodline limit. Bloodline limit? Naruto asked confused. Yup. Watch this. Minato closed his eyes and before long yellow chakras start coming out from his body and covered him completely. When the yellow chakra disappeared Minato was no longer there, instead there was another fox besides Kyuubi, a yellow fox to be precise. The fox opened his eyes to show its lidded blue sea pupil toward Naruto who just standing there with his mouth opened. See that? Incredible isn't it? Minato chuckled while Naruto just nodded his head before he realized something. Dad why your eyes still blue? If I'm not wrong my eyes turned red when I became a fox. That would be my fault. Kyuubi said which made the two face toward it. You see, when you activated your bloodline somehow you also called upon my chakra. It was not much, but it still made some change at your body, which is why your eyes became red and it was also the reason why you fell into a berserk state in the first place. So every time I transform I will berserk again. Naruto was worried if that is true, that mean he must make sure that he won't transform ever again. Don't worry about that Naruto. Minato spoke, cutting Naruto's thought. The only reason why you became like that was that you received a lot stress from transforming for the first time, that, and combined with Kyuubi's chakra, made your mind gone blank, and thus you fell into a berserk state. In other words, the next time you transform you will be able to control yourself, not like last time. Kyuubi added. I understand. So, what will we do now? Naruto asked, as the truth is he had never had a plan after leaving Konoha, not only that his bag had also been destroyed thanks to that Kaiten jutsu. Well, the first things we need to do is take you to my realm. Kyuubi stated. Huh? What she meant is that we're going to another dimension, there both me and Kyuubi could train you without anyone to interfere. Minato explained after he changed his body back. Oh, I understand now. Wait. She, you mean it's a female? Yup. Hard to believe, isn't it? By the way, your reaction just now was exactly the same as mine when I found out about it. Minato said while holding his mouth, trying to hold his giggle, which failed miserably. If you thought that is strange, wait until you found out about that. Minato thought while looking at Naruto, waiting for his next expression. That's because you human are simple-minded fools who thought that male are always stronger than female. Kyuubi yelled before her. I'm going to refer to Kyuubi as female from now on. Body became engulfed by flame, which gradually became smaller until it was the same height as Naruto. When the flame died out, Naruto could see a figure coming out from it. The figure was a female with long blood red hair which reached her waist. She had a slim body with a tanned skin and eyes with blazing red pupils. She wore a red kimono with flame pattern all over it. She also had a pair of fox-like ears on top of her head and 9 bushy red tails behind her. But there's one thing that took Naruto's attention from the first time he saw her. Damn, you're really short for a demon who already had children. Naruto said while putting his hand on Kyuubi's head, who had pretty much the same height as him, not even conscious about the tick marks which appeared on Kyuubi's head, nor Minato, who had fell to the ground while laughing like there is no tomorrow. Shut up. Kyuubi yelled while throwing balls of flame toward Naruto, who was running for his dear life, before she finally stopped by Minato, who had managed to stop laughing, although he was still unable to stop his giggle. Okay, giggle, let's stop this now. Minato said while holding Kyuubi's arm, trying to stop her from throwing another fireball at his poor son, who was trying to catch his breath after the little exercise he just had. You see here, Naruto, I really don't know why this happened, but it seems when I sealed Kyuubi inside you, her body somehow being reverted into your age, and that's why this little missy is he. Minato's words got cut short as he suddenly felt an extraordinary pain on his family jewel, thanks to a well-placed kick Kyuubi had given him. Her power is still the same though. Naruto's sweat dropped at seeing that his father, the great Yondaime Hokage, had been beaten with only one well-placed kick, although he definitely didn't want to be on his father's place now. Well, that's that, now let's go to the main business. Kyuubi said while started forming hand seals before her red chakra flowed toward the whole room and covered everything on its path. Soon the chakra started to glow, and a bright light appeared from nowhere, which made Naruto close his eyes for a moment, and when he opened it back he saw that he was no longer in the sewer, instead he was in a place which looks like a big forest. Where am I? Naruto spoke to himself when he heard a voice from his mind. This is my realm, we should be able to train here without trouble as there is no other people here. Kyuubi stated. Okay, by the way, how come I can hear your voice while you're in my head, and where's dad? First, both me and you father can speak to you a long time ago if we wanted to, but your father forbid me, saying that it will freak you out. Oh, and you don't have to speak in order to talk with us, you only need to think about it and we could hear it. And about your father, he's still on the ground holding his jewel. Sigh, maybe I hit him too hard. Well, that's alright I guess. Well, now let's get the training begin. Naruto could felt that sweat had began pouring behind his head as a thought crossed his mind. This is not gonna be good. Okay, that's enough for today. Finally. Naruto quickly dropped himself on the ground as soon as the red-haired beauty decided to give him some rest. It's been 3 days since the hellish training had begun, and somehow Minato had found a way to let Kyuubi out. He managed to find a way for Kyuubi to create a summoning contract just for herself. In other words, all Naruto could summon is Kyuubi, but it's enough for now, and thankfully Kyuubi can change her body, so she could appear as a small red fox, with one tail instead the big bad fox she was when she attacked Konoha. Too bad that Minato couldn't do the same for himself, so he is stuck on Naruto's mind, but it wasn't that much of a problem, especially after Kyuubi taught Naruto that he could change the landscape on his mind, so instead of a sewer his mind now looks like a big forest with a house near it. Seeing that Naruto is pretty beat up, Kyuubi just shook her head before standing up and walking toward the forest. I'm going somewhere for a moment, you can do anything you like, but I suggest that you should rest so you'll have enough energy for the next training. Naruto just nodded his head as he is too tired to reply. A moment later Kyuubi had disappeared from his sight, and when he decided to sleep, he could hear his father spoke to him. Naruto, do you have a moment? Minato asked. Huh? What is it, dad? The truth is I have something to talk to you, but I didn't want Kyuubi to hear it, so I decided to wait until she is asleep or go somewhere else like now. Minato said with a serious tone which took Naruto's interest. Okay, so what is it about? Minato sighed a bit before he started to speak. It's about your mother. I want to apologize to you about how she had acted toward you all those times. The truth is I couldn't believe it myself that she would acted like that. I had known her for such a long time, so I thought that she would help you no matter what, but I guess I was wrong. Naruto stayed silent for a moment as he tried to remember everything that had happened between him and his mother, before smiling sadly while looking at the sky. Don't worry, Dad, I don't have any grudge toward her. I bet she was just sad at everything she lost when Kyuubi attacked, and maybe she remembered those every time she saw me. So Naruto couldn't finish his words as a tear come out from his eye, as his mind returned to the way her mother had acted toward him all those years, especially on his birthdays, when he tried to give her some presents which she never took. Naruto rubbed his eyes with his cloth before gazing at the sky once more. It's okay, Dad. Like I said before, I didn't hate her, and I'm sure deep down she still cared for me. She did prepared meal for me sometimes. I just hope that she will accept me as her son when we return to Konoha. I know she will, Naruto, I know she will. Minato said with a smile which made Naruto smile too. They stayed there in silence before Minato decided to speak again. Okay, now stand up, Naruto. We had some training to do. What? Hey Dad, I'm still resting here. Naruto protested. No excuse there, young man. I know you had recovered since I'm inside your body, so move your ass or I'll tell Kyuubi to increase her training schedule. Minato said while chuckling as Naruto grumbled a bit before standing up on his foot. At the same time in Konoha, one Sandaime Hokage sat down on his chair while examining the paperworks on his desk. He stopped after some time before leaning back and let out a sigh. After Naruto had left, things changed a lot in Konoha. Although he had told Kakashi and the other not to tell anyone about Naruto leaving, it seems that everyone had started to suspected it. Everywhere in Konoha is very calm now, or should he said, as silent as a graveyard. The only sound he could heard is when he passed by people's chatting, and even that didn't come close to all the laugh and yelling when Naruto tried to run away from his prank victims. The village had somehow lost its cheerfulness as everyone in the village only do their daily works monotonously every single day without anything interesting ever happened. Sandaime sighed again before putting his gaze on the ceiling, while remembering all those days when Naruto was still inside the village. Even if no one wanted to admit it, Naruto is needed to bring cheerfulness to this village, although he could bring anger to the victims of his pranks too. Sandaime chuckled a bit at remembering all those pranks Naruto did before he stopped as a knock was heard from the door in front of him. Come in. With that said, the person slowly came inside the office and walked toward the Sandaime. Kushina, do you have any problem you want to ask me? The woman in front of him raised her eyebrows a bit before speaking. Cut it, Hokage-sama, I'm sure you know why I'm here. I'm sorry, but I don't think I understand. Sandaime said, playing dumb. The truth is he know exactly why Kushina is here. Naruto had gone way too long and had never been seen for some time, not even in the hospital or in the Ichiraku Ramen, two places where you could always find him on normal days. Kushina get irritated a bit by the answer, but decided not to get angry. After all, the person in front of her is the Hokage, and he is much stronger than her. I'll get to the point then. Where's Naruto? He has been gone for a few days, and when I asked the Anbu who used to watch him, all of them said that they didn't know. Sandaime didn't answer right away. He just closed his eyes before standing up from his chair and turned around to face the window. And why exactly you want to know about him? You had never shown any interest on him even once for 7 years, so why start now? Kushina flinched a bit at the harsh words Sandaime used to answer her question, although she couldn't find a way to counter those statements as she knew that she did acted that way before. She hung her head down a bit before answering, that's because I'm his mother. I may never act like one, but he is still my son, so I had the right to know about his whereabouts. So you're his mother, eh? From what I saw, he seems to be an orphan who never had any parents ever since he had been born. Sandaime said in a cold tone which made Kushina tighten her fist quite hard. She quickly lifted her head and glared at the back of the old Hokage. I'm not here to listen to your speech about how I've acted. I want to know where Naruto is, and that is the only thing I want to hear. Kushina yelled a bit. Sandaime turned around and gazed toward Kushina's glare with cold eyes which make her flinched a bit. And? What would you do if you had know his whereabouts? Beat him like every stupid peoples in this village had done. Don't put me on the same spot as those peoples. I'm not gonna do anything to harm my own son. Kushina yelled again as she lost all of her cool. Physically, Sandaime muttered in a low voice. What? Kushina asked bewildered. That's true that you had never harmed him physically. Sandaime stopped talking a bit as he examined the expression on Kushina's face, but I can't say the same about his mentality. Seeing Kushina didn't try to talk back at all, he decided to continue. I don't think that you knew about this, but Naruto had suffered a lot from your cold way of treating him. I spotted him crying several times in his apartment because of that, but every time I asked him why, he always said that it was nothing. I didn't know, the Kushina stuttered. Exactly, Kushina, you didn't know, and you had never tried to find out about his feeling, and thanks to that Naruto had suffered a lot. Not only that, from what I've heard you had destroyed or threw away every single presents he had gave you in front of him. Did you think he will be happy when you did that? Kushina stepped back a bit when she noticed the glare Sandaime gave. It just that he always gave it on the anniversary of Kyuubi. I couldn't stand it, and I thought that the Kyuubi was telling him to do it to mock me. Sandaime sighed a bit at the answer before returned to his chair. I see that you're really blinded by your emotions, Kushina. What do you mean? Have you forget it? 10th October is not only the day when Kyuubi attacked Konoha, it is also the day when you gave birth to Naruto. The answer struck Kushina hardly. She had totally forgot about it, as the bad memories she had about that day had totally thrown away every other memories about it. See, could it be? I see that you understand it now. He had never knew when your birthday was, so he decided to give you a present on his birthday, although it seems that it was a bad choice. Kushina didn't said anything, she just hung her head down, and Sandaime could swear that he saw a tear fell from her eyes. She couldn't help but be disgusted at herself. She had never want to talk to Naruto just because he made her remembered all the bad things that had happened, and without knowing it she had hurt him a lot. A little boy not even 7 who had been entrusted by her husband as her son, but not even once she tried to act like a good mom towards him. She realized that if Minato is here he must be ashamed at how she had act. Heck, she even forgot about her son's birthday. Where is he now? She barely whispered. Excuse me? Sandaime raised one of his eyebrows. Kushina lifted her head slowly before asking again, where is Naruto now? Please tell me, Hokage-sama. I want to apologize for all my stupidity, and another tear fell to the ground. Sandaime didn't said anything, instead he pulled his hat down so it would cover his eyes. I'm sorry to say this, Kushina, but Naruto is no longer in this village. Kushina's eyes widened at this, but before she could spoke Sandaime had spoke again. It happened around 3 days ago. He ran away from this village at the same time as when that ninja from Kumo tried to kidnap Hyuga Hanabi. What? Why you didn't told me then? And why you didn't sent Anbu or another ninja to take him back? Kushina yelled again, but with worry on her voice this time. The problem is that by the time we knew about it, it had been too late, as the kidnapping attempt had took everyone's attention. Besides, I think that he had a better survival rate out there in the wild than when he stayed in this village. But he's only a child. Kushina yelled again. Believe in him, Kushina, you may not know it, but he had spent his life in the forest of the death from time to time when he had to run from the mob. He knew exactly how to survive in the wilderness. Forest of the dead, you said? Kushina was shocked at hearing this. That forest was considered dangerous even for some Chunin, and here a boy not even older than 7 had lived in it and used it to outrun his pursuers. Sandaime nodded his head before opening a drawer on his desk and took a familiar little box with a ribbon attached to it. He let Kushina gaze at it for a moment before handing it to her. Kushina took it from him and examined it for some time before gazing at the old man in front of her again. That is the last present he had for you. The truth is, he asked me not to tell you that it was from him, but I guess it will be better for you if you know about it. My advice is that you kept it with you, as that will be a proof that you had a son who cared for you. Kushina couldn't said anything at that. She just bowed a bit before disappeared in a puff of smoke and appeared at her house. She quickly got inside and toward her room. After she reached her bed, she slowly opened the box and she could see that inside it was a pendant with a big red jewel which matched her hair hanged on it. It was really beautiful, but when she saw it she couldn't help but saw an image of Naruto inside the red jewel, which made every memory she had about her son flooded her mind. That was the last straw, as she quickly pulled herself to the bed and cried for hours before she fell asleep with the pendant still on her hand. Back to the demon realm. So? What will you teach me, Dad? Naruto asked. Well, first we will train in one special kinjutsu. What? Kinjutsu? But isn't it called forbidden for a reason? Minato smiled a bit at his son. It seems he wasn't as dumb as he thought. That's right. But this one won't be a problem for you, instead it will help on your training. This jutsu is called Kage Bunshin, and the reason why it labeled as kinjutsu was because it need a hell lot of chakra to master. Something which you don't need to worry about since your chakra capacity already surpassed even that of a Chunin. Well, I understand that, but how it will help with my training? The difference between normal Bunshin and Kage Bunshin is that with Kage Bunshin, you will create an actual body which could attack, although it will disperse once it got hit. But the advantage is that you will know and learn everything the Kage Bunshin learned while it was out, so if you create 100 Kage Bunshins while training, you will master that training 100 times faster than normal. Wow, then what are we waiting for? Let's do it now. Minato smiled at his son's enthusiasm, and soon they started the training, which took Naruto around 6 hours to finally manage to create 10 Kage Bunshins with enough chakra to last for at least a day. Naruto yelled to the sky at his success, only to heard claps from the side which made him gaze toward it, and soon he was face to face with Kyuubi. Congratulations, kid, it seems to me that you had managed to learn a useful ninjutsu. Kyuubi said while walking toward Naruto. Kyuubi? When did you return? Naruto asked as he didn't realize Kyuubi had returned. Around 1 until 2 hours ago, you must be too focused on your training if you didn't notice. Naruto just nodded a bit before his gaze fell to the bag which Kyuubi carried on her right hand. Hey Kyuubi, what's that on your hand? This. Kyuubi asked while lifting the bag. These are some gravity weights which I want you to wear in your training. These weights can be adjusted simply by a little chakra, so you won't have any problem with removing it when you were in a pinch or something. Wait. But what for? I'm pretty fast enough with my bloodline, so why do I need to do another speed training? Naruto asked, but the only answer he got was a bag flying toward his face, which made him fell to the ground. That's why, you can't depend on your bloodline too much. Besides, I don't think it is wise to use it too much in Konoha, seeing how they hate foxes. Hearing the logical answer, Naruto just nodded his head before wearing the weight, but before he asked about how to activate it, Minato started to speak. Ah, Naruto. The truth is there are still something I need to tell you about our bloodline. What is it, Dad? Before that, Kyuubi, could you hear us too? What? Yes, I could hear you. As long as I'm not asleep or we're not separated too far, I can still hear you. We're connected after all. Is there something you want to talk about? Well, it's good then. The truth is, Naruto, there are 2 things I haven't told you. One good and one bad, so which one you want to hear first? The good one please. Okay, the good news is that you could activate our bloodline partially. This can only affect the eyes, but the result is that you don't have to worry about Jinjutsu, since our eyes could block any Jinjutsu if it's activated. That's awesome. In other words, there's no need for Naruto to learn Jinjutsu, right? Yup, although I don't think that he could learn it even if he want. I tried to learn it in the past and failed. It seems that the bloodline also block our access to Jinjutsu, not like we need it though. Okay, that's a good news, but what is the bad news? I think it will be better to show you. Transform into a fox please. Naruto did as he was told, and soon a yellow fox with red eyes appeared in the place where he was standing before. Good, now do you see that tree in front of you? Naruto faced forward, and he could see a tree around 20 meters away from his standing spot. Yes, so what? Now I want you to run toward it and stop once you are right in front of it. Seems pretty easy to me. Naruto said while Kyuubi just nodded her head in agreement. Soon Naruto dashed toward the tree with an astounding speed and wham! He hit the tree with full force and fell to the ground. That hurt. Naruto yelled while holding his head with his paws, while a shocked Kyuubi quickly ran toward his directions to see if he was alright. Do you understand now? What's wrong with me, Dad? I couldn't even see that tree before I hit it. That's the problem, Naruto. It's true that our bloodline gave us a super speed, but the problem is that our eyes won't be able to catch up with that kind of speed, so we need some extra training to be able to see our surrounding when we dashed away. But he didn't had any problem like this when he first activated it, did he? Kyuubi asked while crouching beside Naruto trying to heal his swollen head. Well, the only thing I could said is that he was pretty damn lucky when he did that. Besides, he wasn't even thinking about where he was running at that time, and he did tripped on that big root if you forget. So? What do we need to do, Dad? And why you didn't warn me about it just now? Sorry, but like I said, it will be better if you find it out by yourself. For me, before I didn't had any time to train since I first activated it when Konoha was at war, so I used the 3-pronged kunai I was famous with. Oh yeah, I remembered that Iruka-sensei said something about that in history class. But what did it do? I placed special seals on those kunais. Those seals emitted chakra around it like a spiderweb which I used to sense directions and enemies. The chakra wasn't much, but with my heightened sense when I transformed into a fox, it was no problem to sense it. I see, but I don't have any of those kunai, so what should I do? Naruto asked. Didn't you hurt him? He only used it because he didn't have any time to train. In your case it's totally different. You have all the time you need to train your eyes. Kyuubi explained, which made Naruto's mouth formed an O. So? Is that the only thing you want to ask me? To train him to be used to high speed? No, that's not all. The truth is I wanted to ask you if you know any seal-less jutsu. Seal-less jutsu? I know a few, but why? Oh, I get in now. Kyuubi smirked while putting her hand below her mouth. What are those seal-less jutsu for? Naruto asked, bewildered. It had some advantages, Naruto. First, you don't need to worry that someone will try to steal your technique, especially those Uchiha, except Itachi, that the next give you the advantages when you transformed. Realizing that Naruto is confused, Kyuubi decided to explain. Think about it, kid. How are you gonna make hand seals with these? Kyuubi said while lifting Naruto's paws, which made Naruto understand and nodded his head. Well, since you've understand, let's start the training. First, return back to human form and create some cage bunshin as much as you can without them disappearing in the next 10 hours. Kyuubi said while snickering, which seems to be an announcement for Naruto that his hellish training had begun anew. 5 years later, I see that this place haven't changed at all. A boy around 12 years old said as he gazed toward the hidden village on Konoha from the top of Yondame's head. The boy had a long spiky red hair which being tied behind his neck with unbalanced bangs on both sides of his head. He had two clear blue eyes, which were the only things that could be seen from his face, as he was wearing a black mask which covered his mouth and nose. His body was covered by a dark blue t-shirt with a long sleeve and a black pants which reached below his knee, with bandages covering the rest of his legs. He also wore an unzipped orange jacket with the sleeves torn and a red spiral mark behind it, Naruto's usual jacket, but had the sleeves torn and only had one spiral mark behind, a pair of normal ninja sandals, a kunai holder on his right leg, and a short katana with a wood sheath strapped on the back of his waist. "Well, let's meet the Hokage then." The boy said to no one as he disappeared in a puff of smoke and reappeared in front of the window at the Hokage's mansion, or to be more exact, in front of the window of the Hokage's office. Too bad for him as not even a minute after he landed there a group of Anbu had surrounded him, although when they did that the boy didn't even flinched, almost like he had known this would happen. "So, what business do you have here, little one?" the Anbu with a dog mask asked. The boy just smiled a bit before turning around to face said Anbu. "Oh, I just want to meet the Hokage." "Is that a bad thing? When you're trying to get inside from a window instead of a door?" "I'll say yes." The boy shook his head a bit before jumping away from the window and landed right in front of the door of the mansion. "You won't have any complaint now, right?" the boy said before walking inside while the Anbu just chuckled before dismissing the other Anbu and jumped to the ground and walked inside himself. Soon the two reached the door which leads toward the Hokage's office and after getting permissions they got inside and stand in front of the old Sandaime Hokage. "Mind to tell me who and why you are here, young one?" Sandaime asked politely. The boy rubbed his chin a bit while looking at the ceiling, as if he was thinking before facing the Hokage again. "My name, you had to find it out by yourself. As to why I'm here, I've come to steal the little orange book inside the hidden vault in the second drawers on your desk," the boy said in a monotonous tone which made Sandaime's eyes widen until it was as big as a dinner plate. No one knew about his hidden treasure, so how did this young boy knew about it? The only person who knew about it were his student Jiraiya and that blonde boy who used to blackmail him by saying that he will burn it. "What the yo, you're Naruto?" Sandaime yelled while pointing at the boy in front of him who grinned behind his mask. "Bingo, now was it too hard to know who I am, Gigi? You're Naruto? What happened to your appearance?" the Anbu behind him said as he removed his mask to show the familiar another mask behind it. "That's true, Inu-san, although I'm not Naruto anymore now." Naruto's statement caught the two off guard which left them stunned. Being the one who recovered first, the Hokage decided to speak. "What do you mean that you're no longer Naruto? And why did you change your appearance?" Naruto sighed a bit before he started to explain. "Well, the truth is." Flashback. "Hey Naruto, come inside for a moment. We had something to talk." Hearing his dad voice, Naruto quickly meditated to got inside his mind. After more than 4 years of training, Naruto had been able to got in and out of his mindscape with ease, although he still had to meditate to do that. A minute later he had arrived in front of the gate which held both Kyuubi and his own father. Kyuubi had returned to the seal a few hours ago, saying that she had something to discuss with his father. "I'm here now." "What's the problem, Dad?" Naruto asked. Seeing that Naruto had arrived, both Kyuubi and Minato quickly sat in front of the gate with serious expressions. "Actually, Naruto, we have decided that now is the time for us to leave this realm and return the real world," Minato said. "And? What's the problem with that?" Naruto asked bewildered. "This is the problem," Kyuubi said while lifting a mirror, and when Naruto looked toward it, he realized what's the problem was. Right now he was the exact copy of his dad, minus the whiskers. "I see that you understand. If you come out now and return to Konoha, there will be an uproar, and soon they will find out about your real identity, and we're sure that some peoples will try to kill you again." Naruto hung his head as all Kyuubi said was pretty logical. "So, what should we do?" Kyuubi and Minato faced each other for some time before Kyuubi speak again. "We found a way for that. I could alter your DNA a bit so that the whisker marks will disappear. Not only that, I will also able to change the color of your eyes or hair so you can become an entirely different person. But there's one problem." "What is it?" "What's the problem?" Minato sighed a bit before answering. "Altering your DNA mean that you will cut your blood connections with your parents, Naruto, or in your case with your mother, as the bloodline inside you was strong enough to hold my connections with you. In other words, if I alter your DNA now and you try to had a DNA check with your mother in the future, the result will be negative. You will cut off your connections with her and her family completely, Naruto." Naruto was shocked at this. Saving himself from the villagers means cutting his blood connections with his mother. Is there no other way for this? Minato just shook his head slowly at this. The three stayed in silence for a few moments before Naruto decided to speak. "Alright, let's do it. You're sure about it, Naruto?" Minato asked in a concerned voice. "Yes, I may be unable to call her mother anymore, but that won't stop me to reach my goal to become the greatest Hokage and protect everyone like you did, everyone including her," Naruto said in a confident tone. "Well, that's a good determination you had there, Naruto. How about I changed your hair to red?" That way at least you could look a little bit like your mother." Hearing this, Naruto brightened a bit before smiling warmly at Kyuubi. "Thanks Kyu-chan, you're really kind." Kyuubi was taken aback a little by the suffix and smile as she quickly looked away with a blush on her face. This reactions made Minato giggled a bit before he returned his gaze at Naruto. "I'm sure she will still accept you as her son Naruto. Now all we need is a new name." "So I need a new name as well?" "Yup, we need a complete makeover here. I've thought a name, how about Mizo Naruto?" Minato asked with a smile on his face, although it was not long since the next moment he had kissed the ground thanks to a kick on the back of his head from Kyuubi. "I can't believe it. How could you give him a lame name like that, you Ramen freak? What's wrong with Ramen? Why don't you give him the name then?" Minato yelled back while rubbing the back of his head. "Me?" Kyuubi asked bewildered. Seeing Minato nodded his head, Kyuubi sighed a bit before closing her eyes and start to think about a good name. Soon she opened her eyes and gazed toward Naruto's directly. "I know a name for you." End of flashback. That's really like Minato to use a Ramen's name on his son. Sandaime said while chuckling. Both he and Kakashi had got over the shock from the fact that Naruto knew about the Kyuubi and that Minato was sealed inside him too. "So? What's your name now?" Naruto took a glance at the window a bit before facing the Hokage. "My name is Kazama Arashi." Yet another morning in Konoha and everything seems to be normal. Some peoples could be seen in the streets walking and chatting, while others decided to stay inside their houses to do some house chores, or for some people, to sleep on a warm and comfy bed. One red-haired girl not older than 12 fell in the last category. She was having a very nice dream until a voice was heard. "Wake up, sleepyhead." A yell rang on her ears, and as if that was not enough to woke her up, a glass of water was sprayed directly onto her face, which resulted in a series of hilarious events. 1. She jumped in surprise. 2. She slipped of the water which had somehow drenched her bed. 3. She fell to the floor beside her bed face first. And 4th, the vibration from her fell made the clock on the desk beside her fell on top of her head, sending her back into dreamland. The person besides her just watched the whole event with a dumbfounded expressions before finally snapped and let out a giggle, which made said girl woke up and tried to pull herself up while rubbing her head. As soon as she had stood on her feet, she glared at the person beside her, or to be more precise, at the woman with the same hair color as her, although the woman's hair was longer. "Ooh, why you had to woke me up that way, mom?" The woman, which was addressed as her mother, quickly stopped giggling before putting both her hands on her hip and glaring at her daughter. "Well, if you had woke up when your clock rang instead of turning it off and returned to dream world, I wouldn't have to did that." "Ooh," the girl just pouted while turning away, although she knew that her mother was right. After all, it was her who set the alarm, since she wanted to wake up a bit early for a change, although it had failed. Seeing her daughter's act, the woman decided to speak. "Alright, stop daydreaming now. Don't forget that you still have to get ready for the academy." Her mother's words took her attention as she quickly turned toward the clock and realized that she only had 40 minutes left before the academy start. The next thing she knows, she had run toward her wardrobe and took her normal set of cloth, which consists of a white short-sleeved shirt and a red skirt with a white strip near the end of skirt. Her clothings also consist of a red vest which reached just below her chest with a Konoha symbol on the left part, a black tights, and a normal blue ninja sandals. 20 minutes later, the girl arrived at dining room where she quickly took some breakfast and after bowing to her mother, she dashed out of the house and toward the ninja academy. She arrived at her class around 10 minutes later and quickly took the farthest seat near the window before letting herself fell to the chair and put her hand on her chest, trying to catch her breath. "Good morning, Hikari-san, you're lucky that Iruka-sensei is a bit late today." A voice came from beside her which made her turn to her side to come face to face with a pair of blue eyes, which belongs to the only blonde of the class and one of her friend, Yamanaka Ino. "Well, good morning to you too. And how come sensei is late? He never came late for the class before." The girl, now known as Hikari, said as she put her index finger on her chin, making a thinking pose. The blonde shrugged before mimicking her friend's action. "I don't know, but from the rumor I heard there's going to be a new student in our class today." "New student?" Hikari asked, confused. "Yep, I heard that he was around our age and that he had been traveling alone in the wild before he came here to our village. They also said that Sandaime Hokage was the one who gave him the permission to enter our class." "Sandaime himself?" "Wow," Hikari said in amazement. She was about to said something before the door was opened and a Chunin by the name of Yumino Ruka walked inside together with boy who had a long red hair. She couldn't help but focused on the boy as she could see that the boy was quite strange. He seems to be quite mature for a boy his age, and somehow he looks familiar, although she wasn't sure since the mask on his face made her unable to see his full face. She could see that some of her classmates also had some interests on the new boy, especially some girls who were drawing at him, but no one was able to said anything as she could heard her teacher started to speak. "Well students, we had a newcomer here in our class. His name is Kazama Arashi and he is around your age, so please befriend with him, okay?" Haruka said while Arashi just stayed there in silence and gazed at his new classmates before his eyes fell on a particular red-haired girl who was looking at him as well. Dad, is that her? From what I see, she looks a bit like your mother, so I would say yes. I see, hope she doesn't recognize me though. Arashi thought returned to what Sandaime Jiji had told him when he was still in his office yesterday. Flashback, I see, Kazama Arashi huh? That's a good name. Sandaime said while puffing his pipe a bit before returning his gaze at Arashi. So what do you plan to do now, Arashi? The truth is I plan to return to my old apartment, is it still empty? Yes, I had ordered that room to be empty for time like this, but what? Arashi asked confused. Did you ever consider to return to your real house Arashi? I can guarantee that your mother will be happy about that. My mother? But she was Arashi said, but he was cut by Kakashi. Believe it or not, your mother was quite shocked when you left. She confined herself inside the house and didn't want to meet anyone for some weeks before Sandaime-sama managed to pull her out. Arashi didn't said anything at these, but the other two could see a smile had formed beneath his black mask. By the way Arashi Sandaime's voice took Arashi back to reality. There's another thing I need to tell you about your mother. Is it bad? Well, it could be bad or good depends on how you see it. Seeing the confused looks on Arashi's face Sandaime decided to continue. The truth is around 3 years ago one of your mother's cousin and best friend died of illness and her daughter became an orphan since her father had died a few years before in a mission. When your mother saw these, she decided to take the girl to Konoha and adopted her as her own daughter. Kakashi said finishing Sandaime's words. I see. What I want to said is that you shouldn't be angry at your mother for this. The reason why she did these was because she realized that the girl will definitely had a hard life, seeing that she was still 9 at that time, and she Sandaime said, but he was cut by Arashi. She didn't want her to experience the same pain that I did right. Both Sandaime and Kakashi nodded their head, while Arashi just let out a light smile. Don't worry about that Jai-chan. I am not angry at my mother, especially after knowing that she care about me, although I think I will keep my identity hidden for a while. But why? Kakashi asked confused. That way I won't have any problem when I become a ninja in this village. Maybe one day I will tell everyone about it, but only after I gain their respects and vice versa. Well, if that's your decision Sandaime sighed before leaning back on his chair. By the way, what is the name of my sister? Arashi asked. Her name? It is. End of flashback. Uzumaki Hikari. Would you stop gazing at your new friend and actually listen to me? Haruka yelled a bit at the red-haired girl, which made said girl stop gazing at the new boy before she realized what she had been doing for some time and quickly put her head down to the table and between her arms to hide her blush and at the same time made the whole class, with the exception of Arashi, Haruka, Shino, Shikamaru, because it's too troublesome to laugh, and Sasuke, laughed. I am sorry sensei, what was it again? Hikari said after the laugh died down which earned her a sigh from Haruka. I said is there anyone who want to ask a question about Arashi here? At first everyone was silent before a hand rose. Yes Sakura. Arashi turned his head to face the only pink-haired girl in the class. Sensei, why he join our class which will graduate this year? If he's really new then shouldn't they put him in a lower class? Because Sandaime had a recommendation for Arashi here, besides from what I heard he managed to survive in the wild for a few years alone and that was quite exceptional considering his age. Haruka explained stressing at the word alone. But survival is different from ninja's training. I bet he didn't even know the basic ninjutsu we learned here. Sakura yelled again. That may be true but like I said before he had a recommendation from Sandaime himself, so if you want to complain about his ability then set it to the Sandaime. Haruka said a bit irritated before he saw another hand rose. Okay Kiba, go ahead. Hey redhead, why you smelled like foxes? The boy with a dog on top of his head said making the whole class confused while Arashi just smiled at the question before answering. Ah, this may be the reason Arashi lifted his orange jacket a bit before a little red fox leapt through it and circled itself around his neck before licking his face. Meet my fox, Himiko-chan. Almost everyone inside the class was surprised by this and some of them actually wanted to say something, but their voice was cut by a loud kawaii from almost every girl inside the classroom. Both Arashi and Himiko were prepared for this as they had a similar experience in a village nearby when Arashi decided to buy some cloth for himself and closed their ears as soon as the yell came, although the unprepared ones, mostly boys, had suffered a temporary death. Arashi snickered at seeing how the boys was acting as he could see himself doing that before and somehow it also made him remember the time when he find out about Himiko's name. Flashback. Well, I guess it's time to go to Konoha. Arashi said to himself before putting on the cloth which he had bought a few days ago and went to the door of his room. He had stayed in this village for a few days as it took quite some time to find everything he need, although he also had another reason for staying. That reason was that he wanted to test whether he was still recognizable after his change or not, especially since the village was not that far from Konoha and sometimes he also came face to face with Konoha's ninjas. The result was quite good as so far no one recognized him, not even some ninjas which he remembered had gave him a beating at least once when he was still in Konoha. The problem was that his change had a side effect, nearly all of the girls his age in this village had looked at him with either drool coming out from their mouth or a heart on their eyes, hell he even spotted those reactions from some women older than him. What made him even more confused was that whenever he asked Kyuubi or his father about for help, the only reaction he got was a giggle from his father or an angry growl from Kyuubi. He could understand about his father's reaction, but what made him confused was Kyuubi's. After spending 5 years with her he had managed to befriend with her and even called her Kyu-chan sometimes, although it seems the Kyuubi always blushed and looked away when he said that. The problem was that ever since he had left Kyuubi's realm and returned back he had spoke less and less with Kyuubi. Not only that Kyuubi had rejected to came out of his body through summoning, and this is what worried him the most, as he could remember that Kyuubi once said that she wanted to stay out of the seals as long as she could back then in her realm. Okay dad, what did I do to make Kyuubi angry at me? Arashi asked as he gave up and finding the answer. Minato stayed silent for a few minutes, but before Arashi could ask again he could hear his father start to speak. I think it will be best if you hear the answer from her yourself. I had a clue about it, but I don't think it's my place to tell you. Arashi could tell from the tone his father used that he must had screw up big time, so he decided to listen to his advice and quickly try to contact Kyuubi, but to no avail, since it seems that either she didn't listen or didn't want to answer. He was hoping that it was the former, although he could tell that it was the latter. Well, if she didn't want to come to me then I'll come to her. Arashi said to particularly no one before sitting under a big tree and meditated. Soon he was standing in front of the cage which held both his father and Kyuubi, although the only one he could see was his father, so he quickly looked around to find his other tenant. Knowing what his son was doing, Minato slowly pointed to the house behind him, and the next thing he knew Arashi had disappeared from his sight, and when he turned around he could see that his son had opened the door of the house. That was fast, Minato muttered before he decided that it will be better to let the two alone and quickly lie down on the grass to take a nap. Inside the house. Hey Kyuubi. Where are you? Arashi yelled a bit although he got no response. Kyuubi. It's me Arashi. He yelled again a bit louder but still got no response. Seeing that it was useless Arashi decided to walk around the house until he was in front of Kyuubi's room. Kyuubi had told him where it was when he visited before. Arashi knocked the door a few times and got no response, but he could swear that he had heard her voice from behind the door. Seeing that nothing will be solved this way Arashi slowly tried to open the door and surprisingly it wasn't locked, so he decided to walk silently inside. What he saw next was not something he had expected before. He could see that Kyuubi was there sitting on a chair and it seems that she was gazing at a picture on her hand. Arashi tried to speak, but his words was cut when he saw tears on Kyuubi's eyes. Hey Arashi-kun. Kyuubi yelled a bit when she found out that Arashi was inside her room, but quickly put her hand on her mouth when she realized what she had just said, although it seems that Arashi had heard it quite clearly. Unfortunately for Kyuubi her reaction made the picture on her hand fell toward Arashi's feet which made him took it and he could see two people in it, one woman who he identified as Kyuubi thanks to the ear and tails and another person, which is a man around 20 years old, who had a bright red hair like Kyuubi and had his hand around Kyuubi's waist. When he looked even closely at the man he could see that the man was smiling warmly and somehow that smile was similar to his own, and that's when he realized that this man was definitely a human. Kyuubi, this is Arashi asked while facing toward Kyuubi, who seems to be trying to hold back tears. Give it back Kyuubi said with a low voice. Huh? Arashi asked dumbfounded. I said give it back. Kyuubi yelled while moving as fast as she could and took the picture back from Arashi which surprised Arashi and made him lost his balance and fell to the ground. Hey. What was that for? Arashi yelled back. Shut up. Why don't you just stop being curious and leave me alone? Okay now Arashi was pissed, he came here to apologize for a mistake he didn't even know what and now she wanted him to leave her alone after making him fall to the ground. Just what's wrong with you? I came here because I wanted to ask you about why you won't even talk to me and here I got you yelling at me for no reason. Too bad for him, Kyuubi was quite angry herself and quickly yelled back, why do you care about that? Especially when you had every girls on the village ogling at you. What's the connection between those girls and you being angry at me? Oh I don't know. Maybe because you look so much like my late husband and the fact that I cared about you so much, but you didn't even get a hint about my feelings. Well what did you just said? Arashi was speechless at this, especially about the fact that Kyuubi had a feeling for him. Truth to be told he do care about Kyuubi, all this years with her had shown him the other parts of the demon fox which had intrigued him so much and had made him fell in love with the red-haired beauty. Despite that he was scared that Kyuubi will reject him if he confess, after all she was a queen of demon fox and probably the strongest being in the world, while he was nothing but a human sacrifice who was chosen to hold said demon. Hearing Arashi's answer and seeing his surprised look, Kyuubi couldn't help but assume the worst and decided to let out every thought inside her, since at least it will enlighten the pressure inside her even a bit. Yes. Are you surprised? You may had a different face, but you're so similar to him in every possible way. The way you smile, the way you act toward other people, heck even your kindness and forgiving attitude are totally the same as him. Kyuubi Arashi wanted to speak, but Kyuubi won't let him. And why do you think I gave that name to you? That was his name for God's sake. That's right. Even your name have a similar meaning. Kyuubi had lost it, she didn't even aware of the tears flowing out from her eyes, while Arashi couldn't say anything and just stand there like a statue. Seeing this, Kyuubi decided that she had had enough and ran toward the door, but she quickly stopped when she felt that Arashi's hand had caught one of hers. What are you, let me go. Kyuubi's words fell to deaf ear as Arashi just pulled her toward him, making her fell to his chest before putting his arms around her. Surprised by his action, Kyuubi just stand there dumbfounded. She didn't even try to resist his grip since she could feel that her strength somehow disappeared by the time he hugged her tightly. Not only that, she couldn't help but felt really comfortable by resting her head on Arashi's chest. They stayed like that for a moment before Arashi decided to break the silence. You were right, Kyu-chan, I'm sorry that I didn't notice your feelings toward me. What are you? But you're wrong about one thing. Arashi loosened his hug a bit before tilting his head down a bit so that he was face to face with Kyuubi. I do care for you, ever since the first time I met you and all these times with you in the demon realm. I didn't understand it at first, but I do know. A moment later, Kyuubi could feel the tears had stopped flowing from her eyes as Arashi pulled down his mask and slowly kissed her cheek before pulling back to wipe the tears from her eyes. Hey Arashi-kun, I love you, Kyuubi. Arashi said before slowly putting his mouth over hers, which made her eyes open wider before she slowly closed them and kissed back. A streak of tear fell from her eyes, but this time it was a tear of joy. A few moments later they broke the kiss and embraced each other. They stayed like there for a minute before Kyuubi spoke. Himiko, huh? Arashi asked a bit confused before Kyuubi spoke again. That's my real name. Kyuubi blushed a bit before facing Arashi once again. I think you deserve to know it. Arashi smiled warmly toward Kyuubi before pulling her into another embrace. I love you, Himiko-chan. I love you too, Arashi-kun. Flashback end. Arashi smiled as he remembered what happened after that. His father wasn't even surprised when he heard that he and Himiko were a couple and said that he had expected something like this for some time. Not only that, Minato even broke the seal he placed on the cage. This way Himiko could get a constant supply of her chakra when she was summoned, which mean that she could stay outside forever, except if she or Arashi wanted her to return back. Arashi-kun, help me. A voice inside his head made him return to reality. Slowly he looked around and sweat dropped when he realized what had happened. Currently Himiko was being hugged to death by a group of females, and it seems that she was out of breath if the pale blue color coming out from her face was any indication. I'm sorry, but can I have her back? Arashi said, which made the girls hugging Himiko faced him with puppy eyes, which desperately asked him to let them hug her a bit longer. Arashi almost gave into it, but a yip from Himiko made him realize that she didn't want to suffer any longer, so being a good boyfriend he shook his head and took Himiko back before putting her on top of his shoulder. The girls slowly returned back to their seats while pouting before Iruka asked if there's anyone else who want to ask something, but seeing that no one raised their hands, he decided to end the introduction. The day passed quite fast, and Arashi found himself surrounded by his classmates, mostly females, who throwing questions after questions like, where do you live or do you have a girlfriend? Until something like, want to become my husband? Arashi shook his head a bit at this and was about to answer when a voice came from a random student in the class. Hey, why you had that fox anyway? They are monsters, you know. To say that the whole class was surprised was an understatement. A second after those words came, said student had found himself thrown to the wall with a kunai following him and hit the wall next to his right ear. The class attention quickly shifted from said student to the red-haired boy who was standing on top of the desk where the unfortunate student was leaning just a few moments ago. Said those words once more and I'll make sure that you won't be able to speak for eternity. Arashi said while letting out a killing intent at the stupid student, making him piss his pants before he turned around and jumped off the desk and toward the door with Himiko following him. Inside the class murmurs could be heard about how strong Arashi was, but a certain Avenger couldn't help but angry and jealous at that power before walking toward the door himself. On the rooftop, you know, I don't think that was necessary, Arashi-kun. Himiko said before hoping toward Arashi's head while said boy stayed silent before he sat down on the floor and faced the sky. Maybe you're right, but I couldn't help it. My body just moved by itself when I heard that he was insulting you. Arashi lifted Himiko's body from his head and put her at his lap before petting her head slowly, gaining a purr from her. Arashi's attention quickly shifted when he heard that the door behind him opened and he could see that there's someone there. Isn't that Weasel-san's brother Sasuke? What is he doing here? Arashi thought before standing up while Himiko just climbed up to his shoulder. Before he managed to ask anything though, said Uchiha had opened his mouth to speak. "Fight me? Huh? What for?" Arashi said in a confused tone before he realized that there are some other people watching them, although it seems that the Uchiha in front of him didn't realize it. "Shut up and fight." Sasuke yelled while dashing toward Arashi and throw a punch at his head. Arashi's quick reaction made him able to dodge it easily, but it seems that this just made the boy in front of him even more agitated as he threw a bunch of kunai toward Arashi, although all of them were dodged. "Damn, what's with this person? I didn't even know him, for God's sake." Arashi thought while kept on dodging one attack after another. Should I give him a good smack or two? That will make him passed out for sure. Wait, Arashi. Arashi was about to land a hit on Sasuke's back, but when he heard his father's voice, he quickly pulled back and jumped backward a few times. "What is it, Dad? I was about to send this boy to La La Land, you know. The truth is I think that it will be better if you lost this fight." "What?" Arashi was shocked by that statement that he barely avoided a roundhouse kick from Sasuke, but said Uchiha had just thought that he had managed to do it thanks to his ability and power. Like they said, ignorance is a bliss. "But why, Dad?" "It's like this, from what I saw that boy want to fight you after you show a bit of your power." "Yes, and?" Arashi asked again while jumping away from a punch. He had decided to keep on dodging for a while until the explanation is over. "Think about it, Arashi-kun, I'm sure that he want to show everyone that he is stronger than you by defeating you in a fight." Himiko said. She had jumped away when Arashi dodged the first attack and currently she was watching the fight from the side. "I see, if I defeat him now he will complain about it and challenge me again in the future until he defeat me, right?" Both Minato and Himiko nodded at this. "So I guess losing now will lost me some trouble in the future, huh?" "Not only that, Arashi, I want you to stay at the bottom of your class. That way there will be a big possibility that you will get a good team, since usually the worst in class will be paired with the best one." "I see." Arashi thought before he dodged yet another kick, although this time he let the kick to scratch his body a little. "The problem is that I had shown some ability into jutsu just now, so will they believe it?" Arashi thought while throwing a bunch of shurikens to keep the distance between the two fighters. "Then you should fail in the other categories and use Taijutsu as the only part where you pass. That won't be so hard, right?" "Alright, well let's finish this one then." Arashi thought before he saw that Sasuke had gone a bit frustrated at how he had managed to dodge nearly every attack he had thrown. "Well, let's take the next attack, shall we?" What surprised him was that Sasuke did something he didn't expect for an academy student. He made some hand seals before inhaled a deep breath and yelled, "Pain. Gikyaku no Jutsu." Sasuke let loose a big fireball toward Arashi, which Arashi dodged quickly by sidestepping, but too bad for him that Sasuke had run toward him and quickly throw a punch at his stomach. This one hit right on target and Arashi ended up getting thrown and hit the rail before he jumped to avoid a kunai directed at him. Having predicted this, Sasuke jumped even higher than Arashi before kicking him from above the shoulder, making him fell to the floor and passed out. After seeing that Arashi was not going to wake up, Sasuke smirked at his win before turning around and walked away while mumbling pathetic. Before he finally disappeared from sight. Seeing that Sasuke had gone away, some peoples appeared around Arashi's body. All of them were identified by Himiko as Arashi's classmates. "Is he okay?" a feminine voice said before Arashi felt that a hand had touched his hand to check on his pulse. "Don't worry, Hikari-san, and for you. I think it will be better if you stop pretending." Arashi opened his eyes quickly, which made the girl who held his hand jump back in surprise. "How did you know that I was only pretending?" Arashi asked before standing up and brushing some dust from his body. He looked around and his gaze fell to the one who had broke his act before, the one he remembered as Abiram Shino. "This is how." Shino lifted his right index finger until it was near Arashi's chest before a bug jumped toward it from Arashi's cloth. "I had planted a bug on you when you left the class and coincidentally it was walking at the spot where Sasuke's punch hit you. But as you can see, it is still alive. And that means Sasuke's fist never really hit you, instead you only threw yourself back by the time his fist made contact with your body, right?" Another boy with a pineapple hairstyle said, finishing Shino's word. "Wow, he's sharp, as expected from Inara." Minato said while putting his hand on his chin. "But why did you pretend to lose?" A fat boy, which Minato identified as an Akamichi, asked while pulling out a bag of chips from nowhere. Arashi didn't answer just then, instead he crouched down a bit and lifted Himiko up before turning around toward the village. "Let's just say that I didn't want to show my real abilities for some time," Arashi said before he disappeared in a puff of smoke, leaving four dumbfounded academy students wondering about how strong their new classmate is. This is gonna be troublesome. "Hey Arashi, want to go and eat some ramen?" Our hero turned around with his fox on his shoulder as he heard one of his friend's voices calling him. "Okay, I have some free time after all," Arashi said while moving toward the one who called him before they walked together toward Ichiraku Ramen. It has been 3 months since he first entered the academy, like normal people he had gained some friends, and somehow 4 of them were the one who knew that he was holding back the whole time. Thankfully for him, none of them pestered him about why he kept doing that as they knew that he can become the rookie of the year if he wanted to. The problem was that one Uzumaki Hikari seems to have grown a bit curious about his face, if her constant habit of trying to see what beneath his mask was any indication. Hey Chaoji, did you invite the others too? Arashi turned to his friend and seeing him nod his head. Yup, they should be there by now. I invited them first since they can't eat as fast as us. Arashi smiled at this. He could remember the day they first ate ramen together, all of their friends were really surprised at the speed both he and Chaoji ate their ramen and nearly bulged their eyes out when he and Chaoji asked for another bowl and still finish it faster than them. Well, here we are. Chaoji's word made Arashi return back to reality and soon both of them entered the ramen stand. He could see their friends, who consist of Uzumaki Hikari, Nara Shikamaru, Kiba Inyazuka and Hyuga Hinata, were already there and they were eating their ramen when the two of them entered the stand. There you are. Do you know how long we've been waiting for you? A feminine voice caught Arashi's attention, so he turned his eyes toward the person and spotted one of his friend Uzumaki Hikari. Come and sit here Arashi. The seat next to me is empty. Hikari said while patting the chair next to her. Arashi had a hunch about why that seat was empty but decided to play along and sat there. Emiko jumped to the counter in front of him after he sat down, while Chaoji took a seat next to Shikamaru. Alright. Today I will definitely see his face. Was the thought of one Uzumaki Hikari, she was a bit irritated that she had never seen his face, even after she befriended with him for about 3 months. To make it worse, she heard that both Chaoji and Shikamaru had seen his face once or twice, and if her hunch was right even Shino had seen it. Welcome Arashi-kun, what do you want today? A girl with long brown hair asked right after the red-haired boy sat on his seat. I think I'll take beef ramen for today Am-chan. Arashi said, while smiling before he spotted that said girl had already captured Himiko in her hands which made him sweat drop and decided to look around, not hearing Himiko's plead about being captured in another bear hug. Where are Ino and Shino? Did you forget to invite them Chaoji? Arashi asked before facing Chaoji and sweat dropped when he saw that his big-boned friend had just finished his second ramen bowl. It seems that he had asked Shikamaru to order some for him before he picked him up. Chaoji put his second bowl on the table and pulled another one before answering I did ask them to come, but Shino said that he had something to do today, while Ino said that she had to help her parents since tomorrow is the festival and they have a lot of customers. Oh, too bad then. Arashi said in a normal tone, but inside he was a bit down, he just remembered that tomorrow is the festival which he always avoided as much as he could, the Kyuubi's festival. Arashi sighed a bit before Hikari decided to speak. Hey Arashi-kun, what do you say if we all go to the festival tomorrow? I bet it's gonna be fun. Hey, that sounds fun. Count me in. Another voice, which belonged to Inyazuka Kiba, spoke, together with a bark from his dog companion. Sorry, but I had something to do tomorrow. Arashi said in a low voice, he knew that he won't have any problem walking in the festival, but somehow he had grown a hate for that festival, thanks to his old experience. HMPH. You're no fun. Hikari said while pouting and crossing her arms which made Arashi chuckled a bit. He was about to say something, but at that same time, AM arrived while bringing a bowl of ramen and put it in front of him. Well, let's eat now and talk later okay? Arashi took a chopstick before moving his left hand slowly toward his mask. Hikari gulped a bit as the hand moved even closer and finally touched the mask when Oni-chan. It's unfair of you to left me behind like that. A girl voice came from in front of the ramen stand which made everyone including Arashi stop doing whatever they were doing and turned around to face, or in Hikari's case, glared at the girl for picking that time to yell. All of them soon able to see that who yelled was a girl around 3 years younger than them and had a long black hair with a pair of white pupilless eyes. Hanabi-chan. Were you here? Hinata asked. Hanabi didn't answer quickly, instead she walked inside and sat next to Hinata before pouting her mouth. I want to spend some time with Ani-chan too, that's why. But didn't you say that had a training with Otu-sama today? Hinata asked again. Yup. But since tomorrow's the festival, Otu-sama had some works to do so he let me take a rest for now. Is that so? Hinata said while smiling toward her little sister before asking her if she wanted to eat some ramen together. Arashi smiled at the sight of the two, he was happy that Hinata and Hanabi could finally interact like real siblings, although it was quite a problem for him to make it became like that. Yup, it was mostly Arashi who melted the ice between the two, and the funny part is that he didn't do it because he wanted to. Flashback. Arashi was sitting on the training ground in the academy where currently he and the other students were having a taijutsu spar. The boys' fight had finished with Sasuke emerged as the victor and Arashi as the runner-up. Of course he was holding back, but no one except the 4 friends he have knew about it. Currently the girls' fight had come to the final round, where one Hinata Hyuga was fighting against Uzumaki Hikari. Both of them put up a good fight in some people's eyes, and soon the fight ended with Hikari as the winner. Soon Haruka decided to let the students to go home, which made almost all the students ran toward the exit, almost being the key word here. Arashi had a strange suspicion that Hinata was holding back when she was fighting against Hikari just now, but it seems that she had a different reason for it, so he decided to do some investigation, and what better way to find out something than ask the person herself. So now we got one Kazama Arashi walking toward Hinata, who was trying to stand up after being hit quite hard by Hikari in the spar. She managed to stood up, but somehow she lost her balance and fell backward. She closed her eyes and waiting for the impact, but soon she realized that someone had caught her if the hand behind her back was any indication. "Boy, are you alright?" the person said. His voice was low, but she could tell that the person was a boy and quickly blushed at the thought of a boy holding her. "Why yes, I am fine." Hinata stuttered. She slowly opened her eyes and soon she could see a pair of blue eyes gazing at her. She gazed at the boy's eyes for some time before she realized who it was. Arashi-kun. He's holding MMME. Was the thought in her head before her face became as red as a tomato, and she do what normal girls do when the person they admired from afar came to them and hold them, fainted like a log. "Oh oi. What are you fainting for? Oi. Hinata." Arashi yelled a bit while shaking her body a bit to no avail. He would ask some help from his father or Himiko for this, but the problem was that both of them were currently laughing their ass off inside his mindscapes, so they were out of the question. "Just how dense can you be?" A voice came from behind him which made him turn around and came face to face with Hikari. "Come on, put her below that tree so she could rest." And he did just that. Soon after both he and Hikari were talking about the reason why Arashi was trying to talk to Hinata before Hinata started to regain her consciousness. "Oh, where am I?" Hinata slowly pulled herself up and looked around, but before the two could said anything her gaze fell to Arashi's face which was only around 30 centimeters apart. Soon the red color of her face returned and she fell backward to return to La La Land. This act of waking up and fainting was replayed for more than 5 times before Hikari finally had enough and told Arashi to sit in the tree branch before splashing a glass of water at Hinata to wake her up. They ended up talking that way, with Arashi sat in the tree branch while the two girls sat under the tree. Soon Arashi got the answer to his question. It seems that Hinata had a low self-esteem due to her father's change of behavior toward her after her mother's death. The other reason of her holding back was because she didn't want to accidentally hurt another people, which consist of her friends and little sister in a spar, and the result was she ended up losing in the spar and getting scolded by her father, which gave another blow to her already low self-esteem. Arashi thought about it for a moment before he finally decided to speak. "You know, Hinata-chan, sometimes holding back in a spar could insulted your opponent, especially when said person was thinking that you're his or her rival." Knowing that Hinata was confused, Arashi decided to continue. "If someone who thought you as his or her rival, in your case, your sister managed to defeat you in a spar, she will definitely feel happy for that as she know that she was stronger than you. The problem is, if she find out that you were holding back, her pride will be crushed. She will feel that all of her ability was a fake and all of her image about her being a strong shinobi will crumble as she realized that she defeated you when you weren't even trying and could defeat her if you wanted to." But I don't want to hurt her," Hinata said in a low voice. Arashi sighed before jumping off the tree and turned his back at the girls. Sometimes getting hurt could be a good thing, since by getting hurt peoples can find out their weakness and they can try to find a way to cover it. Arashi said before turning around and gazed at Hinata. "Tell me, Hinata-chan. Which one do you prefer? You defeat your sister in a spar and help her to improve her, an enemy defeat her in a mission and kill her." Flashback end. After the talk with him, Hinata started to change her behavior. She still stuttered sometimes, but she no longer hid her ability or holding back in a spar. That was proved by her defeating her sister in a spar, which surprised nearly everyone of the Hyuga clan including her father. The problem was just as Arashi had predicted, Hanabi got her pride crushed that same day. Before anyone could say anything, she ran away from the compound with tears on her eyes, and as if it was decided by fate, she stumbled into good old Arashi. Flashback, another one. "Ouch, watch where you were walking, kid," Arashi said while pulling himself up from the ground. He was busy talking with his father and Himiko about whether his decision to help Hinata was good or bad, when all of a sudden a little girl with long black hair and a pair of wide eyes crashed him, making both of them fell to the ground. "Wait a sec, wide eyes." Arashi took a better look at the girl in front of him and soon he realized that he did stumble into a Hyuga. Not only that, he remembered her as the one he helped 5 years ago when he left the village. "Hey, are you okay?" Arashi asked while moving one of his hand toward the girl trying to help her when he realized that she was wounded and had some part of her cloth tore, but she shook it away before standing up by herself and started to walk past Arashi. She was stopped however when Arashi grabbed her left arm and turned her around. "What do you want?" the girl yelled a bit at Arashi. Arashi shook his head a bit, knowing that the girl won't listen to her, even if he said anything before pulling her toward his apartment, which luckily was located not far from there with her yelling all the way and put her on the sofa. You stay there for now, your wound will need some treatment, unless you want them to be infected. Arashi quickly went toward the bathroom to take some medicine, while the Hyuga girl just sat there dumbfounded. Never before in her life, someone except her father or the Hyuga council gave her order like that. Heck, even some adults in the main house weren't there to talk to her, but here she found a stranger only a few years older, had literally pulled her from the street to his house, which she had never went before, and gave her an order to stay. Just who is this person? And why did he help me? I didn't even know him. Her thought was cut when she realized that something wet was touching the wound on her left hand. She quickly turned toward whatever it was and found a red fox the size of a puppy was licking her wound. Surprised by it, she quickly pulled her hand away from the fox before she heard a chuckle came from the direction where the boy went before. I see that you've met my fox, Arashi said while walking toward her with a medicine box on his right hand. Boy, Himiko-chan. Why were you licking her wound? Don't tell me that you wanted to drink her blood. What do you think I am, Arashi-kun? A Dracula or something? I just wanted to taste it a little bit, Himiko said while licking her lips. Isn't that just the same? Minato asked while both he and Arashi sweat dropped. That fox is yours? The girl asked while pointing at the fox which had jumped from the sofa and went toward Arashi. Yup, her name is Himiko-chan. She is cute, isn't she? Ah, by the way, my name is Kazama Arashi, what's yours? The girl was a bit surprised at this since there's no one in Konoha that didn't know who she was. Are you new in this village? She asked in pure curiosity. Arashi was confused at the question, but decided to answer anyway. Yeah, I came to this village around 2 months ago. Why? So that's why you didn't know who I am. My name is Hanabi Hyuga, the second daughter of the Hyuga clan's head. The girl said with pride, although deep down she was a bit sad. She was sure that this boy will started to act like the other peoples who act like she was a queen or something. At first she was quite happy with all the attention, but lately it was becoming a nuisance as she had almost no real friend. So Hanabi-chan is it? I guess you're Hinata-chan's sister. To said that Hanabi was shocked was an understatement. Not only did this boy knew her sister, but he didn't seem to care that he was practically kidnapping a Hyuga heiress. On top of that, he seems to act toward her like she was a normal girl without a character title. Alright, it's done now. Arashi's word took her back to reality, which gave another surprise as he had finished treating the entire wound she had without her realizing about it. What's the matter, Hanabi-chan? Arashi asked when he found that Hanabi was practically stoned. Hanabi was a bit shocked by the sudden question before she decided to speak. No, it was nothing. It's just thanking you for your help. Being a Hyuga clan heiress, she had almost no experience in dealing something like this. If she wants something she would only need to ask, and she will get it, but knowing that the boy in front of her was not her everyday people, she realized that she had to at least give a thanks. Don't worry about it. But why were you running around while winded like that? Actually, he had a nice guess about why, but he just wanted to make sure. She hesitated at first, but soon she started to explain about how her sister changed her attitude and defeated her in a spar, and also about how her broken pride made her ran away from everyone, and especially from her father and sister, before she finally crashed into Arashi. In other words, it was your fault that this all happened, wasn't it, Arashi? Minato asked while Himiko just nodded her head in agreement. Boy, don't blame everything on me, please. How did I know that my advices will result this way? Well, since it had become like this, you should help her gain her confidence back now. That way everything will be fine, I hope. Himiko said the last part with a low voice, although both Arashi and Minato had heard it. Let's just hope this works. Arashi sighed before turning toward Hanabi. Hanabi-chan, what do you think about your sister's change? Is it good or bad? Hanabi was confused at the question. She thought about it for a minute before hugging her leg and speak. The truth is, I'm a bit happy with her change. I knew how bad Otu-sama and the elders were treating her just because she always lost to me in a spar, so I guess she will gain a bit respect from them now. At the same time, I also feel sad to find out that I was fooled all this time and that I was so weak. Tears fell from her eyes as she said those words, but before Arashi could said anything, Himiko had jumped to her lap and licked some of the tears away, which made said girl smiled a bit before capturing the fox in a bone-crushing hug, or as much as her little hands could. Seeing this, Arashi just chuckled before he sat down on the sofa next to her and patted her head. You know, Hanabi-chan, sometime losing can be a really good experience. Hanabi lifted her head a bit so that she was face to face with Arashi, but didn't said anything since Arashi continued to speak. Just look at you, you might had the title of a genius, but it won't mean anything if you overestimate yourself and look down on your opponent. After all, sometimes people chose to hide their real ability for various reasons. In your sister's case it was because of her kind heart, but that didn't mean that she was weak and you could underestimate her, right? Hanabi nodded her head weakly as she had learnt about it the hard way. She had overestimated her ability and underestimated her sisters just because she always won in their previous spar, and this led her to her defeat. Now that you've learned your lesson, you should go forward in your life. After all, losing in a spar doesn't mean that it's the end of the world. You still have a lot of time to improve yourself and become even stronger than you're now, and as long as you don't repeat the same mistakes you will become one super strong shinobi, I'm sure of it. Arashi smiled warmly as he said these, and it seems to be contagious as Hanabi too start to smile a little. It was at this exact time the door of his apartment flew open and a figure came inside. Arashi-kun. We need your help. Hinata-chan's sister disappeared, and Hikari's statement was cut short as she froze with her mouth open when she came face to face with the sight inside Arashi's apartment. Being confused at her reaction, Arashi opened his mouth to speak, but before he could said anything, two other figures which Arashi identified as Hinata and Kiba appeared, and when they came inside they too stopped dead in their track with a surprised look on their faces. Guys. What's wrong with you? Arashi asked confused. You could be so stupid sometimes, Arashi-kun. Himiko said while giggling, which made Arashi faced her with a look that said, what did you mean? Try to see the current situation from your friend's perspective, Arashi. The answer came from Minato, which made Arashi even more confused. Sighing a bit, Minato decided to explain. Okay, here's the problem. 1. Hinata's sister, who disappeared from her house, are currently sitting in the sofa next to you. 2. Some parts of her body were strapped by bandages with her clothes tore here and there. 3. You still had your hand on top of her head. 4. Both you and her were currently inside your apartment alone. Realization quickly dawned inside Arashi's head. He could feel sweats pouring behind his head before he quickly stood up and put both his hands in front of him. Wait a sec. I could explain. Too bad the damage had been done to his friends, and soon they left their shocked state and started to speak. Hey Arashi-kun, you're a lolican. It was Hikari. Even if you're a lolican, going after your friend's sister is still wrong, Arashi. This time it was Kiba. Hey Arashi-kun, lolican, should I said who this was? Ho, I didn't know that you're a lolican, Arashi-kun. Himiko said while smirking slyly. My son had been defiled by the world of lolican. I failed as a father. Minato said while pretended to be crying. What's a lolican? The innocent question from the little girl. The casino somewhere. I'm not a lolican. Huh? Tsunade-sama, what was that? A woman with a short black hair asked. Don't know and don't care, hey you. I placed everything in even number. Flashback end. Of course Arashi tried to explain everything afterwards, although one furious Hyuga Hiashi barging in his apartment with his Byakugan, flared on the next second, was not helping at all. Thankfully at that time Sandaime, who had seen everything from his all-seeing magic ball, came and start to explain everything, and soon all problems and misunderstanding was solved. After that Hiashi's attitude toward his daughters changed in a better way. He even started teaching them in rotation and thanked Arashi for his help. Hanabi also started to address him as Ani-chan. It didn't really bother him since he was older than her, but one thing for sure. He was very relieved that she did that after everything had calmed down. Imagine what Hiashi will do to him if he caught her calling him that, with the misunderstanding still ensues. Being accused as a lolican was bad enough, but being accused as a lolican who forced a little girl into calling him something like Ani-chan while her already furious dad was in the same room. Now that was something even the greatest Hokage would not want to experience. Arashi-kun. A yell came from his side made Arashi's thought return back to reality. He slowly turned to his side to see that Hikari was the one who yelled at him just now. Oh sorry Hikari-chan, what did you say? Said girl just sighed before turned back at her friend. I said that you better eat your ramen before it get cold. And the faster you start eating the faster I'll be able to see your face. Oh you're right, thanks. Arashi said before turning toward his ramen to spotted that Himiko had managed to run away from AM and was sitting in front of his bowl. Chuckling a bit, Arashi lifted Himiko before putting her on his shoulder, but as soon as he removed his hands from her, he could sense that Himiko had disappeared from his shoulder, which made him turn around quickly and saw a smiling Hanabi walk toward her seat while holding said fox in her hands. Great, another bear hug, Himiko mumbled a bit before resigning herself to her fate as the little girl's plushie. Well, that's your own fault for choosing that size. If you were a little bigger maybe they won't bear hugged you like that and have everyone attacking me for being a super size fox. No thanks, beside in this size I could cuddle myself in your neck every time I want to. Well, anytime I wasn't bear hugged by these girls anyway. Suit yourself then. Arashi said while smiling a bit when he saw that Hanabi had started rubbing her face at Himiko, an act which also took the attention of his friends including Hikari. And too bad for her that Arashi realized it and chose this exact time to eat his ramen as fast as he could. Thank you for the food. Arashi said while clapping his hands together. What? Came Hikari's response. She quickly turned around to spotted one empty ramen bowl in front of Arashi. She couldn't help but cursed herself for letting her guard down, giving her another failure in her reveal Arashi's mysterious face mission. What's what? Arashi asked. Realizing that she had said that one quite loud, Hikari quickly shook her hands before answering, and no, it's nothing, sorry. Arashi knew that she was lying, but decided to shrug it off before ordering yet another bowl of ramen. The next day, Konoha was having its time in the year, flowers, stands, and peoples could be seen covering the main street of Konoha. You could see kids running in the street while wearing a Hokage mask, or teenagers and adults chatting with each others while scanning every stands near them. All in all, it was happy day for everyone in Konoha. After all, they were having a festival to commemorate Yondaime Hokage's win against the fierce demon fox which once endangered Konoha and managed to kill a lot of shinobi of this village. Peoples were having a blast as they stopped doing their normal activity and decided to have some fun in the festival. Well, all but one. Look at them partying like there's no tomorrow. Are you sure that you don't want to go there? Nah, like I said before, I don't like this festival. All I got from it was bruises or near-death experiences after all. Was the answer that the Red Fox got from one Kazama Arashi. The red-haired boy could be seen sitting in a place where no other people could be seen, on top of Yondaime Hokage's head. Even before the morning could be seen, this boy had left his apartment to train before finally decided to take a rest in his favorite place, which was also the only safe place he could hide beside the Hokage mansion. Well, if you really insist about that, Himiko sighed before she transformed into her human form and took a seat next to Arashi. Before Arashi could said anything, the red-haired girl next to him quickly placed her hand on his head and pulled him down so that he was lying with his head on her lap. "Boy, what are you doing?" Arashi asked, confused. "Just shut up and relax. We're girlfriend and boyfriend already, so there's nothing wrong with this kind of affection, right?" Arashi couldn't find any answer for that, so he decided to stay quiet before he remembered something. "By the way, Himiko, where's your ear and tail?" "Oh, that, well, I've gotten used to hide those with ninjutsu whenever I transform into my human form." "Gotten used? But I've never seen you transform even once since we came to Konoha. Wait a second, so you were the reason that I sometimes feel pain in my arms and chest when I woke up in the morning?" Arashi said while sitting up and point his right index finger toward Himiko. "Haha, it seems I've gotten caught." Himiko laughed a bit while rubbing the back of her head. "Sorry about that, I only wanted to try it once before, but since it was really comfortable it became a habit." Himiko said while knocking her head sheepishly, which made Arashi sighed. "Oh well, not that I lost anything because of that, but next time you want to do that, please tell me beforehand, okay?" "You got it, master." Himiko put her right hand in front of her forehead, pretending to give Arashi a salute before pulling his head back to her lap and rubbed his hair gently. The two of them stayed in a comfortable silence until they heard footsteps coming from behind. The two quickly stood up and looked behind them to saw a woman walking toward their position. The woman was wearing a black cloth, and from what they saw she also brought something on her hand, but the one that took the two's attentions was the color of her hair, which was bloody red, just like theirs. Mom. Good morning, you two," Kushina said when she spotted the two before walking toward them. "Gee, good morning," Arashi said with a low voice while Himiko just nodded her head. "I'm sorry if I disturbed you, to tell you the truth I never expect to meet anyone here." "And no, it's okay, we didn't expect anyone either," Arashi said quickly. Kushina smiled a bit after hearing that. A moment later she walked past Arashi and Kyuubi before crouching at Yondaime's head and put the thing she brought with her, which was ramen, Himiko said in confusion. Kushina giggled a bit when she heard Himiko's statement before standing up and faced her. "That's right, is it strange?" No, I didn't meant to insult or anything, I was only." "Don't worry, I know it is quite strange to put a bowl of ramen here where there's no one to eat it." Kushina smiled before patting Himiko's head trying to calm her down. "But why are you doing something like this?" Curiosity got the better of Arashi, and before he knew it he had asked the question. Kushina's smile became a bit grim when she heard the question, but decided to answer it. "Actually, I am doing this for my son." "Your son?" Arashi said a bit hesitant. Kushina nodded her head before she sat down on the ground. "Yes, the truth is he ran away from this village 5 years ago and haven't returned back ever since." "He ran away, why?" Arashi asked again. "Hey Arashi-kun, is it really okay to ask that?" Himiko asked, her voice was full of worry. "Let him be, Himiko, he need to know what Kushina think about this." Arashi said quickly, although in the inside he was also worried about this. On one side he wanted to believe in Kushina, but on the other side, he also worried that Kushina still bore some hatred for his death. Kushina stayed silent for some time before started to speak, "Because this village was filled with stupid people, including me." A tear fell from her eyes when she said that, but before anyone could say anything she speak again. "My son, he was a hero who protect our village from a demon, yet we were blinded by hatred and saw him as the demon itself in the end. We threw our anger at him, he was beaten almost every day, and if not for some people who actually cared for him, he would have died by that time. I don't know how he did it, but he always endured those pain and smiled, but I know that he was crying deep down." And to make it worse, even his own mother had treated him badly. Kushina could feel the tears had start flowing from her eyes, but did nothing to stop it. Instead she just hugged her leg and continued her story. Yes, I never knew at that time, but after speaking with Sandame-sama, I realized that I had hurt my own son badly, that I have never tried to understand him, my own son, not even once. After saying those words, Kushina slowly reached inside her cloth before pulling a really familiar pendant out. That pendant she kept it. Arashi's eyes widened a bit when he saw it and couldn't help but smiled warmly when he realized that she had kept his last gift. This pendant was the last and the only gift I ever really received from him. The truth is I had received some other gifts from him, but I was still clouded by my own hatred at that time and I ended up destroyed or thrown away all of them. Kushina gazed at the pendant for some time before holding it on her chest with both hands. The day I received this, I made a promise to myself that if I ever meet him again, I will apologize to him. I know that my sin to him was too much to be forgotten by a simple apology, but I feel that if I don't do that, I won't be able to rest in peace. Of course it was his own decision whether to forgive me or not, I can't and won't interfere with it, and I also won't blame him if he doesn't want to forgive me, but I really hope that someday he will forgive me for everything I did. Kushina hung her head down and cried silently after she said that, but she quickly pulled her head back up when she felt a hand touch her face and wiped her tears. Please don't worry about it, I'm sure that he will forgive you. Arashi said while smiling before standing up and turned toward Himiko, who was smiling warmly at him. Kushina didn't know how he did it, but this young boy had lifted all the sadness from her heart with those words. After wiping the rest of her tears she stood up to her feet and smiled at the two teenagers in front of her. By the way, you still haven't told us about why you put the ramen here. Himiko said while putting her right index finger on her mouth. Ah, that's right. Actually this was my son's favorite place and that ramen was his favorite food. Ever since he left this village I always came here at his birthday, which is today, while brought a bowl of ramen with me, hoping to be able to meet him here one day. Well, it seems your prayer was heard. Arashi thought happily before bowing toward his mother and walked away from that place followed by Himiko. Kushina stared at the two teenagers who was walking away from her when all of a sudden she felt that she saw a silhouette of a little boy with blonde hair walking besides the mysterious boy before the silhouette stopped walking and turned around to face her with a smile on his face, a smile which she saw so many times in the past. Naruto, her eyes widened at this, but before she could say anything a strong wind came making her close her eyes and when she opened them back the two teenagers and the silhouette of her son had gone from her sight. She smiled a bit before turning around and gazed at the sky while holding the pendant and said, "Must be my imagination." It was nighttime in Konoha and everyone had returned to their houses to rest. Well, almost everyone, that is. So tomorrow is the day, huh? Himiko asked, trying to put herself in the most comfortable position she could on Arashi's neck. Arashi didn't answer, he just nodded his head a bit as it was enough to answer Himiko's words, which looked more like a statement than a question. He might not show it, but he was looking forward to the next day, as tomorrow is the day where he would finally become a ninja, and that meant he could stop holding back. Even if he is only able to show his real power in a dangerous situation, it is better than nothing, I guess. Arashi walked slowly toward his apartment. He just had a nice dinner consisting of 6 bowls of ramen with different flavors in each of them. Something which made Himiko growl at him while saying that ramen is not a good diet and that he should eat more fruits or vegetables. Of course all that advices fell on deaf ears, since in both Arashi's and Minato's point of view, ramen is the gift from the god itself, something which made her note them as the ramen freaks duo. Arashi had just reached the door of his apartment when the three noticed 2 chakra signatures moving away from the Hokage mansion, and judging from the speed they moved, something wrong must have happened. After a little discussion with Himiko and Minato, Arashi decided to see what happened before dashing toward the 2 chakra signatures, and luckily for him, the 2 had stopped moving a while ago in a forest nearby. Arashi silently sneaked toward the 2 before hiding behind a tree while listening to their conversations. A few minutes ago, damn it. Where are the Anbu when you need them, was the thought of one Yumi no Iruka who was in hot pursuit of his fellow teacher in the academy Mizuki. He was walking near the Hokage mansion when he saw a shadow jumping away from the window and landed next to him, a shadow which he identified as Mizuki. He was about to ask him about why he did what he just did before he noticed that Mizuki was carrying the forbidden scroll of Konoha, which made him realize everything quickly. Mizuki was trying to steal the scroll. So here we have him running as fast as he could to catch the silver-haired Chunin before said Chunin stopped and turned around to face him. Well. I must admit that you are a really persistent one, Iruka. Mizuki said while smirking. Just what are you trying to do, Mizuki? That scroll on your back is not something you could take anytime you want to. Iruka pointed at the scroll with anger plastered on his face, but it quickly turned into confusion when Mizuki started to laugh. Mizuki stopped laughing a second later and shook his head before closing his eyes and sighing, Iruka, you are really stupid, aren't you? Of course I'm doing this for power. Mizuki yelled a bit before dropping the scroll to the ground. In this scroll, we have a lot of secret jutsus, which will make me as strong as a cage, and when I'm done I could trade it to the other villages for some cash too. Pretty beneficial, isn't it? To say that Iruka was disgusted at this was an understatement. Not only did Mizuki dare to steal the scroll, he even wanted to sell that scroll to the other hidden villages. Not if I can stop you here, Mizuki. Iruka yelled before he dashed toward the silver-haired Chunin and threw a punch at his face, only to see a smirking Mizuki who had anticipated this attack and had lifted his left arm to block. What he didn't anticipated was that Iruka quickly opened his hand and caught Mizuki's arm before pulling him and landed a kick on his stomach, making him fly toward the tree behind him. Give up now and your punishment will be lighter, Mizuki. Iruka said while Mizuki just smirked before jumping back to his feet. Why should I do that if I can kill you here and gone without punishment? Mizuki pulled out a bunch of kunais and threw them at Iruka, who used his own kunai to block most of them, although one still managed to land on his right leg. Seeing that Iruka had lost his balance thanks to the kunai on his leg, Mizuki quickly threw another volley of kunais before he himself ran toward Iruka, who was busy deflecting the kunais. Too bad for Iruka, one of the kunai had an exploding tag on it. The explosion from it wasn't big, since Mizuki didn't want to gain too much attention, but it was enough to make him fall to the ground, which earned him a kick on the face courtesy of Mizuki. That's a payback for what you did before, now it's time for you to die. Mizuki pulled out another kunai before walking toward Iruka, who was trying to get up on his feet but found out that it was really hard to do. Mizuki laughed when he noticed Iruka's problem before he started to speak. It's no use, Iruka. The kunai that hit you before was coated with poison which will paralyze your whole body. Mizuki said while smirking as he saw the surprised look from Iruka. What? Did you think that I wasn't prepared for someone to interrupt me? Well, just blamed yourself for your stupidity then. Mizuki raised his kunai and was about to stab Iruka when a yell was heard. Fuetin. Tatapa. A big whirlwind blasted through the forest and before he could react, Mizuki was hit by it and thrown away to the deeper part of the wood. Iruka was quite shocked at this, but quickly sighed in relief and muttered a small thanks for anyone who had used it on time. He was able to see a shadow which he thought as the one who had helped him dashing toward Mizuki, but was unable to saw who it was. He wanted to go to help, but realizing that the poison had paralyzed his whole body, he decided to just stay there and wait for help. Mizuki on the other hand was really pissed. He was so close in killing Iruka and ran with the scroll when another one showed up and blasted him with that whirlwind. Realizing that someone was coming toward him, he quickly scanned the area and saw a shadow above a tree branch quite near to him. So there you are. Show yourself now so I can kill you, bastard. Mizuki yelled at the shadow that just shook his head and sighed. Oh boy. I was supposed to get a genin test from him, not an insult or a murder attempt. The problem is what you're gonna do now. He's not an enemy you could defeat with that taijutsu act, you know. Well, he won't be able to give any genin test after what he had done today, so I guess it won't hurt to show off a little. Arashi grinned a bit when he heard his father's word and quickly jumped from the branch and onto the ground in front of Mizuki. Seeing the shadow's identity, Mizuki just laughed before gazing at Arashi. And I thought that you were a jounin. Listen here, Mr. Ninja Wannabe, you may take me by surprise with that jutsu just now, but I suggest you run before I hurt or worse kill you. Mizuki said while pointing his kunai at Arashi. Sorry, but I think that you should take that advice for yourself, Mr. Cage Wannabe. Arashi said while giggling as he saw that Mizuki's expression quickly changed to that of anger when he used his own insult at him. That's it. I was planning to let you go before, but now I'm going to kill you. Mizuki quickly threw the kunai on his hand before he himself dashed toward Arashi, who had dodged a kunai and punched him in the face, only for Arashi to disappear in a puff of smoke. What? Cage Bunshin, Mizuki shouted in surprise. No academy student was able to do that, heck, even he wasn't able to use it freely, and he was a chunin. Where are you, bastard? Mizuki looked around to find his ex-student but found no trace of him. He was thinking that Arashi had run away when he felt a chakra signature behind him. He turned around as soon as he could and spotted Arashi around 4 meters away running toward him. The only problem was that Arashi was holding something on his right hand, something which looks like a spinning blue-colored orb. Since you really want to become a kage, why don't you feel a jutsu from one? Arashi yelled, and before Mizuki managed to do anything he had came face to face with the red-haired boy. Rasengan. With that cry, Arashi slammed the blue orb at Mizuki's stomach, sending him flying through some trees before he finally stopped and fell to the ground unconscious. When I said you could show off, I don't think that I meant this. Minato sweat dropped at his son's action to use Rasengan of all jutsus. He's right, Arashi-kun, what if he tells someone about this? Who cares? Besides, I would use it sooner or later anyway. Arashi replied with a cheerful voice before he stroked Himiko's head, gaining a purr from her. Oh well, what's done is done. But I suggest that you go home now before another ninja come here. I doubt that those trees Mizuki broke will gain no attention. But that said, Arashi quickly jumped away from that place, and thanks to that, he managed to return home unnoticed by a group of Anbu who came 10 seconds later after they found an injured Iruka, who quickly explained everything before he pointed at the directions Mizuki had been thrown to. The incident created quite an uproar the next day, especially when a rumor that the one who stopped Mizuki was only an academy student was heard. Most of the civilians claimed that it was Uchiha Sasuke who did that and praised him to no end, although most of the wiser shinobis, excluding some stupid fangirls, knew that there's no way that he could do something like that. Mizuki was at least mid to high chunin, and from what they heard from his teacher in the academy, Sasuke was high genin at the most. Too bad for those who wanted to know the truth that Mizuki's confession was held by the Sandaime, and no one else knew who had defeated Mizuki yesterday, since Sandaime didn't want to tell anyone, saying that said person had came to him and asked that his identity kept as a secret. He made this one up well. The truth is Ibiki knew who that person was, but who would dare to ask him anyway? In the academy the same rumor could be heard, and many students were discussing about it since they knew that Mizuki may be a bad teacher, but he was strong nevertheless. Of course the main choice for this discussion was Uchiha Sasuke, since everyone knew him as the best of all, although there are 5 students who had a different opinion about this. Yup, 5 students, 4 of them consisted of them who knew that if an academy student was the one, it must be Kazama Arashi. The last one was none other than the brooding Uchiha Sasuke. When he heard that it was an academy student who did it, he fell completely into his anger mode, as he thought that this student had stole the power who was rightfully his, and that he will find him and forced him to give him the power. He soon cool off his head, as he thought that this was just a stupid rumor, and that the one who beat Mizuki must be a Jounin or an Anbu who used a hinge to fool Mizuki. Meanwhile, the red-haired boy was currently trying to sleep on top of his desk, which was located at the far back of the class. He had slept really late thanks to Himiko, who insisted to sleep on top of him in her human form, which was really disturbing, not to mention that Minato kept annoyed him by saying that he had acquired a new fluffy blanket. He came a bit early since he had expected that Takari, Shino, Choji, and Shikamaru will ask him questions about the incident. He answered them truthfully, in whispers, because he knew that it won't be easy to fool these 4 when they knew about his real ability, especially Shikamaru and Shino. Thankfully, after hearing the truth, they just nodded and left him to his peaceful slumber, but too bad for him, the god wasn't being nice to him today. He could hear a loud running sound from the hallway, and in an instant the door of the classroom was opened really quickly before 2 peoples emerged from it. I'm going to sit next to Sasuke-kun. No, you won't, forehead. I will. Oh, I will, no pig. Just you watch. Not so fast, Pinky. Don't forget that I'm faster than you. Oh yeah, well, it's okay since I'm much more beautiful than you. You? Beautiful. When hell freeze over. Will you two shut up? Both his sides are empty, so stop fighting and just sit down. The 2 stopped their fighting when they heard Arashi's yell. They stayed there for a few seconds before realizing that Arashi was right and quickly took a seat. This made the other students sigh in relief, as they didn't have to hear their yell anymore. But one Uchiha silently cursed himself for not taking the seat near a window, and Arashi for telling this too about the seat. How come they didn't notice that those seats were empty? It was clear that no one wanted to sit there after being kicked away by those 2 every time. Arashi muttered before putting his head back on the table. Well, that's what a fangirl is all about. You were lucky to be in the same class as that Uchiha, otherwise you might get some of them chasing you. Himiko growled when he heard what Minato said. If any of those fangirls tries to do that, I'll make sure that they stay in the hospital for a whole month. Wow, talked about a possessive girlfriend. Can't you tone it down? I'm trying to sleep here. Arashi sighed mentally, but like I said, God wasn't being nice to him today, as by that time the door of the class opened again and a bandaged Iruka came in while bringing a bunch of papers. Alright class, now we'll start the Genin exam, so do your best and don't fail, okay? Some of the students nodded their head while some other just stayed silent as Iruka started to spread the paper. 3 hours later, Arashi walked lazily toward the training ground. So far they have finished the written test, Jinjutsu test, Shuriken throwing test, and currently they were having the Taijutsu test. Due to Mizuki's absence and Iruka's injury, the test was a bit different. Instead of fighting a teacher, they were pitted against each other in one-on-one battle. To prevent a one-sided battle, Iruka had paired the students by their score when they were in academy, and just his luck that he was paired against Sasuke. So how should I do this one, Dad? Arashi asked, as from all the tests before this, he had scored average in Shuriken, but failed in both the Jinjutsu and written test. I say that you should hold your ground and give Sasuke a hit or 2 before losing. Why don't you just let Arashi defeat him? This is the last test after all. Well, alright I guess, but don't forget to hold back, okay? He's not as strong as Mizuki, so you will end up hurt him badly if you forget. Roger that. Iruka was letting the girls fight first, so Arashi decided to sit on the ground next to Shikamaru and the others while waiting for his turn. Around 30 minutes later the girls finally finished their fight, and currently Kiba was fighting against Choji while the others still waited for their turn. Arashi just sat there when he spotted Hikari took a seat next to him. That's some wounds you got there, I guess Hinata really improved, huh? True to his words, Hikari did have some nasty bruises on her arms and legs thanks to her trying to block the Gyuukin from Hinata. Yeah, it seems that Hinata really took your advices seriously. Ouch, Hikari said while rubbing her hand with the medicine Hinata gave to her. By the way, are you gonna defeat Sasuke in this one? She said in whisper, which made Arashi nodded his head. Good, he really need to be taught a lesson sometimes. I still don't understand what Ino sees in him. If I have to choose someone, I will definitely choose you. What? Arashi's question made Hikari realized what she just said, which ended up in her trying desperately to close her own mouth with her hands and hid her blushes. Arashi blushed a bit too, but before any of the two could speak again, the fight was over and Iruka called the next competitors, which ended up as Arashi and Sasuke. The two slowly walked toward the arena with a different expression, a confident smirk from Sasuke and a bored look from Arashi. Soon the two went into their fighting position, and when Iruka started the match, Sasuke quickly ran toward Arashi and let out a punch. Arashi dodged the first attack and threw a punch of his own, which was blocked by Sasuke. Decided to speed up things a little bit, Arashi grabbed Sasuke's arm while throwing a kick at Sasuke's leg, making him jump up to avoid the kick, but as soon as he did that, Arashi pulled his arm and threw him away. Sasuke did a spin in the air and landed back at his feet before smirking at Arashi. Heh. I see that you have improved, dope, but this time I will do it seriously. Arashi just yawned when he heard that, which had the desired effect. Covered by anger, Sasuke made another dash and threw a sweep kick at Arashi's leg, which Arashi dodged by jumping backward. Smirking at this, Sasuke quickly stood up and did another kick toward Arashi's body, only for Arashi to catch his leg and pulled him forward while landing, making Sasuke lose his balance and fall to the ground. Is that what you called serious? I'm just warming up, you know. Arashi said in a bored tone. This can't be happening. I always defeated him in spar and I'm not gonna lose now. Sasuke thought angrily before jumping back to his feet and getting back to his fighting position. Don't get cocky, you bastard. I'm an Uchiha and unlike you, we're always the best in everything. Sasuke yelled before throwing yet another punch at Arashi, who just sighed and disappeared right before the punch hit. He disappeared, where is he? Right, left, behind, above, Sasuke thought while looking toward every direction in his mind when he heard a voice from Arashi. It's front, you fool. True to his words, Arashi suddenly appeared right in front of Sasuke and kicked him in the stomach quite hard, making him bent down while holding his stomach before he tried to hit Arashi, only for his target to jump and did a spin above him. Before Sasuke could turn around, he felt that Arashi had grabbed his head with both of his hand, and the next thing he knew, he was thrown away by Arashi before hitting the tree and falling to the ground. I think the match is over, right? Arashi said while turning toward Iruka, who nodded his head. Arashi could hear cheers from his friends and some of the boys, but he could also hear insults from Sasuke's fangirls, especially Sakura and Ino, for hurting their Sasuke-kun. He slowly walked back to his friends when he heard a yell from behind. Kaiten. Gakyaku no Jutsu. Arashi quickly turned around when he heard this, and his eyes widened when he saw a big fireball coming toward him, but before he could do anything, the fireball hit him directly, resulting in an explosion and shocked everyone present. Heh. That's what you get for turning your back on enemy. Sasuke said while smirking at his victory. Sasuke Iruka was about to yell at Sasuke when the fire from the Gakyaku was dispersed by a blast of wind. Everyone including Sasuke was surprised at this and quickly turned toward it to saw that Arashi was standing there unharmed but with a really angry looks on his face. You're really trying my patience, aren't you, Sasuke? Arashi said in a very cold tone, which sent shivers to all of his classmates. Too bad that Sasuke was having too much ego for his own good. Shut up. I'm an Uchiha and I can do whatever I want. Sasuke yelled before he started to make the hand signs for the Gakyaku again. The Yasuo dead, Minato said in a low voice. Knowing that the attack will injure someone if Sasuke missed, Arashi quickly jumped as high as he could before make some hand signs himself. You won't be able to run just by jumping away. Take this. Kaiten, Gakyaku no Jutsu. With that, Sasuke let loose another fireball at Arashi while smirking, but what he didn't know was that Arashi had finished his own hand signs that Sasuke was so familiar with. Arashi pulled down his mask before yelling, try your own medicine, Sasuke. Kaiten, wait, Arashi-kun. You used too much, Himiko yelled, but it fell to deaf ears. Gakyaku no Jutsu. Takurasai. Sasuke and the others were surprised at the name of the attack, but what surprised them the most was that the fireball was almost twice as big as the one Sasuke launched. It was obvious to everyone that Sasuke's fireball was easily overpowered by the one Arashi launched, and soon Sasuke was face to face with a big fireball which was on its way and killing him. He was lucky that Arashi had made the fireball to miss on purpose so that it only hit the ground a few feet in front of Sasuke, although the blast was still enough to throw Sasuke away a few meters. Arashi landed on the ground a moment later and after pulling his mask back up, he gazed at Sasuke, who was still sitting on the ground, shocked for having his own attack used on him. Listen here Sasuke, you should consider yourself lucky that I didn't hit you with that fireball. Try to do something like that once more and you're as good as dead. Arashi quickly turned around and walked toward his friend who was as shocked as Sasuke. Sure they knew about Arashi holding back, but they didn't know that it was to this extent. Everyone stayed silent and didn't speak anything when Arashi came near them, everyone but one. Arashi you bastard. How dare you copy Sasuke-kun's jutsu. A pink-haired fangirl shrieked like a banshee and pulled back her fist to punch the red-haired boy, only to have a sword pointed at her throat. For your information Sakura, I had known that jutsu for years now, so don't try to use that lame excuse. Besides, it was he who attacked me from behind when the match was already over, and don't forget that he used ninjutsu in a taijutsu match. Arashi said emphasizing the word taijutsu. 2 hours later, Arashi was really bored, he had passed the genin exam which was proved by the headband he tied on his left arm. The problem was that he didn't know what he had to do now, especially since his favorite spot the Ichiraku ramen was closed today due to Tucci and AM going to another village for restocking some special ingredients. Why don't you just go and train then? Minato suggested, seeing as there's nothing to do, he decided to do that and ran toward the training ground. After arriving at the training ground, he created 50 cage bunshin before he started the training which consists of water walking, kinjutsu, taijutsu, reading, and speed trainings. After an hour of training he sensed someone walking toward him, so he quickly dispersed the cage bunshins before he turned toward the figure, only to be tackled to the ground by a child with a black hair. Congratulations on passing the exam, Ani-chan. The child which identified by Arashi as Hyuga Hanabi said in a cheerful tone while still hugging her Ani-chan in her arms. Arashi chuckled a bit at the little girl's antic before he started to speak. Well thank you Hanabi-chan, but could you get off of me please? Instead of moving away, Hanabi just shook her head before tightening her grips on Arashi's body while giggling. Ha Hanabi-chan please Arashi pleaded, only if you agree to train me today. Hanabi exclaimed happily, which made Arashi confused. But don't you get training from your father? Arashi asked. Hanabi shook her head a bit before facing at Arashi's face. As a reward for passing the exam father decided to give One-chan an extra training, so I don't have anything to do today. I don't know Hanabi-chan after all. I didn't know how your father trained you, Arashi said while facing down at Hanabi, and this was his biggest mistakes. Right after he faced her he could see that she was using a jutsu which had made him fall to Himiko's trap a lot of times, the puppy eyes no jutsu. You can't? Hanabi asked barely above whispers. This jutsu was powerful enough when it was used by a normal person in his age, but when it was used by a cute girl who was younger than him, now that's something he won't be able to hold. No must resist don't fold damn puppy eyes Arashi thought helplessly, another gaze toward the little girl, and he could see a tear forming on her pupilless eyes. Strengthening his mind as much as he could he opened his mouth and spoke alright, I'll train you which made the little girl on top of him released him while yelling hooray to the sky. Odd, I felt pathetic Arashi thought to himself. You're not the only one Arashi, you're not the only one Minato said, while remembering the oh so many times Kushina had used that damn jutsu at him. Himiko on the other hand, was giggling at the trouble this father and son were having. So for the next 2 hours Arashi helped Hanabi to train in her Jaiuken, and to his surprise, with only a little help, Hanabi had managed to land some hits which was quite fatal on him. He was holding back sure, but to be able to do that when she was about 3 years younger than him was quite amazing. Currently both of them were sitting below one of the tree in the training ground. The reason was because Hanabi had used up almost all of her chakra and stamina in the training, so Arashi decided to call it for a day. When they reached the tree Arashi secretly summoned Himiko before putting the fox on his lap and struck her slowly. Seeing the little red fox Hanabi squeal a little before petting the fox herself, they kept on petting her until another figure was spotted by Arashi. What do you want Sasuke? Arashi asked without even looking at the person, while said person just grumbled before he started to speak. How did you become so powerful? You never had that kind of power before so how Arashi sighed before he lifted Himiko up and gave her to Hanabi before he turned around towards Sasuke. Let's talk in a different place Arashi started to walk away with Sasuke behind him, while Hanabi who knew that Arashi didn't want to be disturbed, just sat there while petting the fox on her arms. Both Arashi and Sasuke stopped walking around 20 meters from their original spot before they gazed at each other again. Listen here Sasuke, like I said to Sakura I have had that power for years. The reason I hold back in the academy was because I want to keep it as a secret so I could get the surprise advantage over my enemy. Then train me to be stronger. I need that power. Arashi shook his head at the sorry Sasuke, but no. What? Why? You trained that Hyuga child so why not me, and Uchiha? Sasuke exclaimed angrily. That's because you have no real reason to fight. You're wrong. I have a reason. I fight for avenging my clan. Arashi laughed at these, making Sasuke's face turn red in anger. What's so funny? That, Sasuke, is not a real reason. That's merely an objective you want to achieve, something which will end when you've done it. A real reason will never end until you die. Sasuke stayed silent as he had no answer to this statement. Seeing this, Arashi decided to continue. Besides, I don't think that Itachi is a bad person. What do you mean? He killed my entire clan. Sasuke yelled again. Well, here's a question for you then. Why he did that? He did it to measure his capability. He said that himself. And you believe that? Sasuke was taken aback at this question but nodded anyway. Sasuke, from what I heard, Itachi used Tsukiyomi on you when you met him, right? Sasuke nodded again. Now my question is why he bothered using that on you? Face it, Sasuke, you were only a little kid back then. A simple genjutsu would be enough to knock you down, so why he had to use Tsukiyomi, which wasted a lot of chakra? That Sasuke tried to answer, but Arashi cut him. And if he really wanted to measure his capability, why did he leave right after that? From what I heard, he didn't have many wounds on his body, and the fact that he used Tsukiyomi on you clearly stated that he still had enough chakra to fight. Now why he left like that instead of fighting even one of Konoha's ninja except the Uchiha? What are you trying to say? Sasuke said in a low voice. Arashi sighed before he walked past Sasuke and stopped when he was back to back with him. What I wanted to say is that you should find the real truth before accusing someone guilty just because you see it yourself. After all, as a ninja we must always see the underneath of the underneath, right? After saying that, Arashi started to walk away, leaving Sasuke there by himself to think about everything he had said. Was it true? Did you really had another reason for doing that? Sasuke stayed silent for a while, not even cared about Arashi leaving him alone. A moment later he clenched his fist before lifting his face and gaze at the sky. If that's true, then I'll find the truth behind your action, Itachi. I swear it. Beep 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 crash. Stupid alarm clock, Arashi muttered while rubbing his eyes. That's good morning for you. By the way, I think that you should wake up now. Today is the day for your team placement, right? Okay, Arashi thought while trying to pull himself up before he realized that something prevented him to do so. Arashi turned his head down and pulled the cover off to find the red vixen snuggling onto his chest with a very comfortable expression on her face. Damn it again. Boy, Himiko, wake up please. Arashi put his hand on her shoulder before shaking her a bit, but to no avail as she only snuggled even more. You know, you could stay like this all day if you don't do something, Minato said. Sighing at the comment, Arashi looked around his room and found a pillow which had fell off the bed somehow and slowly made hand seals. Let's hope this works. With that thought, Arashi used Kawarimi with the pillow, and thankfully that didn't woke Himiko up. Finally released from the red-haired beauty, Arashi made a cage bunshin and told him to make some breakfast while he went to the shower. 15 minutes later, Arashi came out from the shower fully clothed and saw that the breakfast was ready, and it seemed that Himiko had started to wake up. So noisy, Himiko said while slowly pulling herself up and rubbed her sleepy eyes. Breakfast is ready, so come on, we have our team placement today. Okay, Himiko said with half-lidded eyes before she went to the table and sat on Arashi's lap. Arashi protested, only to be silenced by a bottle of milk which was forced into his mouth by Himiko. Come on, we're boyfriend and girlfriend, so I don't think this is wrong, or maybe you wanted something more, Arashi-kun? Himiko asked slyly before turning around while still on his lap, circled her arms behind Arashi's neck and pressed her body on Arashi's in a very suggestive manner, which resulted in a bright blush on Arashi's face and something more. Too bad for Arashi that something didn't go unnoticed by Himiko. So you do want something more, huh? What do you say if we do it now? Himiko said cheerfully while kissing his cheek, which made Arashi blush even more. Boy, Himiko, please don't tease my son any further, okay? It won't do any good if he fainted now, right? Himiko sighed at Minato's words before she pulled the milk bottle out of Arashi's mouth and drank the leftover milk. Yeah, right, if not because you watching us like a hawk, I would have jumped on him a long time ago. Himiko said in an irritated tone which made the two males' sweat drop. I think you better finish the breakfast now so you don't get late to academy, okay? Minato said quickly in an attempt to change the topic. He remembered seeing the looks on Himiko's face from his experience with Kushina, and he had a gut feeling that if he let her any longer, Arashi won't be able to get out of his apartment today. The two nodded their head before Himiko turned around again, and for the next 20 minutes, the two ate their breakfast with Himiko sitting on Arashi's lap as he had gave up and telling her to get off of him. After they finished, Himiko transformed into her fox form and jumped onto Arashi's shoulder before he put his mask on and dashed toward the academy. Soon the two reached the academy, and Arashi took his normal seat on the back of the class while waiting for Iruka-sensei to arrive. One by one his classmates came inside the class and took their seat, including one particular Uchiha. Normally Arashi would just ignore him and let Sasuke's fangirls to mess with him, but today was a different case. Why? Because normally Sasuke would just sit down on his chair and put the "I have no time for this crap" looks on his face, but today he didn't do that. Instead he looked around the class until his gaze fell on Arashi's. The two looked at each other for a moment before Sasuke did something really unthinkable. He smirked. And it wasn't his usual "I'm stronger than you" smirk, but it seemed more like a friendly smirk bordering a smile, something which the whole class had never seen. Not knowing about the fact that Sasuke had never did that, Arashi just raised his eyebrows while the whole class was in awe at how the two act. The thought of the peoples around them were, huh? Did Sasuke and Arashi-kun just had a friendly contact? Hikari, damn. Hell must have frozen over. Kiba, gee, to be able to change Sasuke like that Arashi is really troublesome. Guess who? This munch new chips munch are really delicious. Another guess. A third guess. Until something really crazy like oh my god. Sasuke and Arashi are so hot together. I hope they won't mind a threesome. Oh. I must tell this to everyone so they can change the name from Sasuke Fan Club to Sasuke X Arashi Fan Club. One word fangirl, just guess who. The thought was cut short as one Iruka Yamino came inside and used the big head jutsu to silence everyone, and soon he started his speech before reading the team placement. Skip Team 1 to 6. Team 7, lead by Hada Kakashi. The members are Uzumaki Hikari, Haruno Sakura, and Ichigo Sasuke. Yes. True love always prevail. A yell came from the pink-haired Kunoichi who stood up while making a V with her fingers, only to be hit by a chalk on her forehead, courtesy of Iruka. Stay silent Sakura, I haven't finished. Due to odd number of graduate, you of Team 7 have another member, and he is Kazama Arashi. These were the thought of the four genin when they heard that statement. Great. That stupid Arashi could take care of that Uzumaki bitch, and I'll have my time alone with Sasuke-kun. Arashi haha, if it's him there's no problem with me. Good. At least I don't have to handle the Banshee and that emo prince all by myself, not counting all the time I have to uncover that damn mask. Well, I could handle Hikari. Sasuke, I guess he had changed a bit, the only problem left is Sakura. Seeing the looks on his student's face, Iruka decided to continue next, teammate lead by Yuuhi Kurenai. Members are Inyazuka Kiba, Aburam Shino, and Hyuga Hinata. Now here are the thought of the three. Alright. Now I had a lot of time to ask Hinata out. Too bad that I have Shino instead of Hikari though. I'm not in the same team as Arashi-kun. Team 9 is still around, so now Team 10, lead by Sarutobi Asuma. Members are Akamichi Chouji, Nara Shikamaru, and Yamanaka Ino. What? Why do I have these two while Forehead had the two hotties? The only blonde-haired genin yelled while her two teammates just shrugged. Great, why do I have to be in this troublesome girls team? Well, at least I have Shikamaru in my team. Sorry about that Ino, but everything had been decided so just accept it. Iruka said, which made the blonde sighed and fell to her seat while Iruka looked at the paper on his hand. Now for Team 11. 3 hours later the classrooms were almost empty, keyword. Almost. All other genin teams were already taken by their respective jounin teacher, leaving 4 genin who were a bit irritated by their late sensei. Damn it. Just where is our teacher? Yelled Sakura, which making her two teammates nodded their head while the other one particular red-haired boy, just shook his head before he continued to pet at his fox companion, which was lying on the table in front of him. Hey dad, are you sure that Kakashi-sensei is always like this? Trust me son, the day Kakashi come early is the day when the sun rise from the west. To think that he was that Anbu who always protect Arashi-kun. Arashi just sighed before he felt a familiar chakra signature coming from behind the door of the classroom. Speak of the devil, Himiko said before turning toward Arashi, who pulled out a pair of orange balls from his kunai pouch. Huh? What are those balls for, Arashi-kun? Just a little punishment for being late, Arashi answered while smiling too warmly. Soon the door opened and a jounin with silver hair came inside with a bored look on his face. Team 7. I'm here to pick you up, so Kakashi's words were cut when he saw a pair of balls flying toward his face, and being the expert jounin he is, he easily caught the balls with his right hand before facing at the genin who had threw them. You know, I don't think that throwing balls is a good way to greet your teacher, Arashi. Kakashi said while the 3 genin stayed dumbfounded at the speed he caught those balls. Yeah right, and coming late is a good first impression as a teacher, huh? Beside that isn't a greeting, this is the greeting. Arashi snickered before he put his hands in a ram seal before yelling Katsu. Uh-oh was the only thought in his mind as realization had came too late for the one-eyed jounin, since by the time he realized that the balls he got on his hand had a small exploding tag attached to them, they had glowed brightly before exploding. While the explosion wasn't big enough to deliver any damage, the orange paint sprayed from the balls was a different story. As soon as the smoke disappeared, the genin inside the rooms couldn't help but laughed at the sight of their jounin sensei covered by orange paint from head to toe. Right, even Sasuke couldn't help but laughed a bit before he forcefully returned his face back to his cool expression. My impression from you guys is I hate you. Kakashi said in a flat tone, making all 4 genin sweat drop. Meet me on the roof. With that said, Kakashi disappeared in a puff of smoke. The 4 genin looked at each others for a moment, but soon they just shrugged it and start to walk out of the classroom and toward the roof. When they reached the roof they were a bit surprised to saw that Kakashi was leaning against a railing while reading an orange book, but what really surprised them was that his clothes and body were as clean as the time he first arrived at the classroom. So that was a cage bunshin, huh? Damn. He is even lazier than what you told me, Dad. Well, that's Kakashi for you, Minato said while scratching his cheek with his finger. Okay, you've arrived, now sit down and we'll begin the introductions. Introductions? Sakura asked after they had sat down. Kakashi smiled a bit before speaking again. Yup, we're telling each other about our name, likes, dislikes, hobbies, and dream. Why don't you go first then, sensei? Hikari said. Fine with me, my name is Hada Kakashi, but you can call me Kakashi sensei. I have a lot of likes, dislikes not much, hobbies I'm not telling, and dream that's not your business. So all we learned was his name was the thought inside the genin head. Alright, so we'll start with him. Do you want to ask something? Kakashi raised an eyebrow when he saw Hikari lifted her hand and seeing her nodded he led her to speak. Sensei, are you Arashi's dad? Hikari asked innocently making both Arashi and Kakashi fell to the ground. Why did you ask something like that? Kakashi asked after he managed to stood back. Well, first I don't know any of Arashi's relative, second you called him by his name back then in the class, although I never saw you met him, and third you both had that same damn black mask on your face. Hikari yelled the last part while pointing at the mask on Kakashi's face. Kakashi sweat dropped while scrubbing his head before answering. You see, the reason why I knew about his name was because I've met him when he first arrived to the village and that was before he entered the academy. And about the mask, he already wore those by the time he came so don't blame me about it. Hearing that Hikari nodded her head before Kakashi spoke again. Alright then, let's start with you Pinky. Sakura snorted at the nicknames but decided to spoke. My name is Haruno Sakura. I like look at Sasuke. My dislikes no pig. My hobby is another glance plus giggle. My dream, yet another glance plus giggle plus squeal. Great a fangirl. Kakashi thought. Alright, you're next red girl. I'm not red girl. Hikari yelled angrily. My name is Uzumaki Hikari. I like training and spending time with my friends. I dislike fangirls who put bad names to us. Kunoichi, glare at Sakura. My hobby currently is trying to open that stupid mask on Arashi's face. Both Arashi and Kakashi sweat dropped at this. My dream is to see Arashi's face without that damn mask and to find my lost brother and bring him back. Hikari said the last part with a low voice, barely whisper, but the other 6 if you count Himiko and Minato, could still heard it, especially with the sudden sad expressions on her face. Your brother? But I thought you have no siblings. Hikari? Sakura asked though Hikari didn't show any sign of answering. Dad, yeah, I bet that she was talking about you. Hey, alright, let's continue. Black-haired brooder, you're next. Kakashi quickly said in an attempt to change the topics. Sasuke scowled at the way Kakashi called him, but realized a reason and start to spoke. Name Ichiha Sasuke. I have some likes and dislikes. My hobby is something you don't need to know and my dream to find the truth about my brother's action. Sasuke-kun is so cool. Guess who? Still the same brooder, but at least he had softened a bit. Heh, I guess Iruka was right after all. Kakashi thought before turning toward his last student. Flashback. Iruka, don't you think putting these 4 together is a bit unfair for the other teams? Sandame Hokage asked while looking at the paper which displayed the team arrangements. Iruka, who was standing in front of him, just sighed before he shook his head. Actually, Sandame-sama, if what I saw today was true, then it would still be unfair for the other, no matter where we put Arashi-sen in. But from what I know the other 3 beside Arashi in these teams are already the top genin in their class, so why add Arashi to them? Sandame asked, especially since he is at least jounin if he doesn't hold back. It may sound unfair, Sandame-sama, but from my point of view only 3 teams had the capability of passing the real genin exam, they are Team 7, 8, and 10. I divided them in this way and hope that they will be able to perform the best they can. Team 10 is the continuation of the Ino Shikachou trio, Team 8 is the main scout unit, and Team 7 as the best power and attacker unit. Right? A voice cut Iruka's statement and made him and the Hokage to turn toward the door and saw a silver-haired jounin leaning on the doorframe. Kakashi, why are you here? Sandame asked. Kakashi sighed a bit before he walked toward the Hokage's desk. I just wanted to give you my mission report from before, Sandame-sama. Kakashi said while putting a stack of papers on the desk before turning toward Iruka. So, did I guess correctly? Iruka nodded his head before started to speak. Yes. From what I see, Arashi, Hikari, and Sasuke are almost the best fighters in the whole academy, and together they could handle even a group of enemies by themselves. And Sakura had the best chakra control, so if she is trained well she could be the team's medic, and with that kind of combination, I'm sure that they could clear any missions given to them with ease. I see, Sandame muttered, and there's more, right? Iruka nodded his head again. Yes, actually I'm not really sure about this, but it seemed that from his interactions with Arashi today, Sasuke had changed a bit in a better way. I only hope that by placing them in one team, Arashi could somehow help Sasuke to put his hatred behind him. Sandaime nodded his head before turning toward the window. Let's just hope that you're right, Iruka. End of flashback. Last one, go fox boy. Is it just me or this person really loved to insult each and everyone? Naruto thought. More like his mouth had no other words except for insulting someone. Himiko said. What's the matter, fox boy? We're waiting, you know. Kakashi said. Alright. My name is Kazama Rashi. I like ramen, my friends, and Himiko-chan here. I hate stupid people who judge peoples without knowing them and the 3 minutes time to cook instant ramen. My hobby is training and eating ramen. About my dream, I wanted to be strong enough to protect everyone I care and to be acknowledged by everyone from my home village. 2 words came to everyone's thought except Arashi and Minato. Ramen freak. Kakashi sighed before rubbing his chin while scanning his students. Let's see here, I have a fangirl, a genuine kunoichi with a brother complex, a less brooding Uchiha, and a ramen freak. Great, just great. Okay then, that's all for today. Meet me tomorrow at 7 AM at Training Ground 7 for your Genin test. This surprised the Genin except Arashi as he had been told about this by Minato. Genin test? But we already passed that, sensei. Sakura said, only to be answered by a laugh from Kakashi. Sorry guys, but to be a real Genin you had to pass a survival test from your Jounin sensei. And guess what? The failure rate for this test is 66.66. Kakashi said with a smile, making all the Genin except Arashi paled. Arashi seemed to be unaffected by this. Well, he had Minato sensei, so I guess it's not strange. I just hope that sensei didn't tell him about the meaning of that test. Kakashi thought, understand. Don't forget, 7 AM at Training Ground 7. Oh, and try not to eat breakfast or you'll throw out. With that said, Kakashi disappeared in a puff of a smoke, leaving 4 dumbfounded Genin on the roof. Oh well, I think I'll go home now. See you guys tomorrow. Arashi waved at his teammates before he too disappeared in a smoke. No use staying here, I guess. Bye guys. Hikari said before she ran toward the door. Alright. This is my chance to go on a date with Sasu-kun. Sakura thought happily before she turned around. While spoke Sasu-kun. How about only to found out that Sasuke had walked away from her. Ah, wait for me, Sasu-kun. The next day, 9:50 AM, Training Ground 7. Just where are those 3? A yell from a pink-haired kunoichi was heard. She was really furious now. Why, you asked? Simple. 1. Sasuke didn't want to talk to her. 2. She didn't eat breakfast like her sensei's advice and she was starving. And 3. Her sensei and 2 of her teammates haven't arrived yet and it's almost noon. 10 minutes later she could hear footsteps coming from the entrance of the training ground and when she turned around she could see her other teammates walking toward them slowly. You're late. She shrieked again. Geez, can't you turn down the volume of your voice? Besides, I don't see Kakashi sensei here, so he must be late to write. Hikari said while removing her fingers from her ear when a poof sound was heard and the figure of her sensei appeared in the middle of the training ground. Yo. Was the only thing he said before another yell of "you're late" was heard. Sorry about that, I was walking toward this place when a black cat crossed my path, so I took the other way and found one sick old grandma, so I took her to the hospital first. After that I was told to wait while she was checked up and in the end I have to carry her home and guess what? To reach her home I have to walk through 5 mountains and 4 valleys and that took a lot of times. Liar. Another yell. Like anyone would believe something like that, Arashi thought. By the way, you too, Kakashi said while pointing toward Arashi and Hikari. Why did you come so late? Well, from what I've heard and saw yesterday, I have thought that you will be late again today, so I took my time to rest before coming here. Arashi said, well, the truth is father was the one who told me to come late, but I can't say that in front of my teammates. I see, and you? Kakashi pointed at Hikari. The truth is when my mother heard that you're my sensei and that you want us to come here, she told me to come late since she was sure that you will be late again. Kakashi nodded at the answer before turning back at the others. Well, let's start the test then. Kakashi said before pulling 3 silver bells and 1 alarm clock from his pocket. The test is simple, you have to take one of these to pass. Anyone who has no bell when this clock rang at 12 o'clock will be sent back to the academy. But sensei, there are only 3 bells and there are 4 of us. Hikari said, which made Kakashi smiled a bit. Yup, that means one of you will return to the academy. Now begin. With that said, the 4 genin disappeared from sight while Kakashi just looked around before pulling a book and start to read it. Okay, they hide themselves quite well. Now I wonder who will start the attack, Kakashi thought while keep on reading his book before walking toward the forest. But Arashi was sitting on a branch while thinking about the test since his father didn't want to give the answer. Okay, so the test is to take a bell, huh? I guess I could take one even if he go all out, but that would be difficult and I don't think that the others could do the same. There must be a hidden meaning behind this test. Arashi slowly looked around to see what his teammates were doing when it came to him. Of course. We are a team, so we must work as one. I guess I'll find the others then. Arashi thought before he jumped away toward the nearest teammate he could find, while inside his mindscapes, Minato was smiling at how his son had found the answer so fast. With Kakashi, did I overdo it? Kakashi asked to himself while he was standing in front of one fainted Sakura who was defeated by one simple genjutsu, which made her saw a really bloody and nearly dead Sasuke walking toward her with a dozen of kunai and senbon around his body. The effect was quite funny as she wasn't even able to let out a sound from her mouth before she fainted to the ground, making Kakashi shake his head. Kakashi had no time to think though as a bunch of shurikens flew towards him and hit him directly, only for him to turn into a log. In the other tree one Sasuke Uchiha cursed himself for failing to defeat his sensei with that shurikens and he knew that he had gave his whereabouts to an opponent and something like that never end in a good way. There you are. A voice from behind him took him by surprise as he quickly turned around and dodged a punch to his head but he still got hit by a spinning kick which threw him onto the ground. Too bad, that surprise attack of yours had failed. Kakashi said with a smile, let's see how good you are compared to Sakura. I'm different from her. Well, we'll see about that. As he said the Kakashi quickly disappeared and reappeared below Sasuke and throw an uppercut toward his jaw. Sasuke managed to dodge that attack by bending backwards before he turned even more and did a somersault kick at Kakashi, which made him dodge to the side. Trying to gain the upper hand Sasuke pulled out a bunch of shurikens in midair and threw them at point-blank range, but to his surprise, Kakashi turned into another log and appeared next to him with his right hand ready to hit him. Damn it. Sasuke yelled to himself as he got hit by the punch and flew to the side. He quickly got into his feet and dashed toward Kakashi again and delivered a series of punch and kicks before he found an opportunity and quickly reached toward the bell only to be caught and thrown away by Kakashi. He's quite good, I don't even have time to read my icha. Lucky that no one was here to help him. Kakashi's thought was stopped when he saw that Sasuke had stood back and started a series of hand seals before he inhaled some air. Oh boy, he is able to do that. Pain. Dikyaku no jutsu. Sasuke yelled while he threw away a big fireball toward Kakashi, but to his surprise Kakashi didn't try to dodge the attack, instead he threw a bunch of shurikens at him right at the same time as when he used his jutsu. His attack hit the mark, but he knew that he couldn't hold the jutsu for long, so he quickly stopped it before jumping to the side just before those shurikens passed through the flame and hit a tree. To make it worse, when he turned toward the place Kakashi was standing he was already gone and by the time he realized it was already too late as Kakashi was already behind him with a tiger hand seal ready. It's over. Konoha hit into Jutsu Aogi. Senin Garashi. With that said, a cry of pain was heard all over Konoha a few moments before with Hikari. This is bad, I may be quite strong at Taijutsu, but don't think I could fight on par with an elite jounin like Kakashi-sensei. Hikari was so deep in her thought she didn't even realize that someone was sneaking behind her until a pair of hands came from behind her before covering her mouth and pulled her backward. MMPH. Hikari thrashed at her assaulter before she heard the people behind her let out a SHHH. Which made her stop trashing and looked behind her to come face to face with the familiar blue eyes. Hikari sighed in relief when she realized the identity of the person behind her. Seeing this he removed his hand from her mouth and spoke. Alright, listen here Hikari. This test had a hidden meaning. Huh? Hikari asked dumbfounded and soon Arashi started to explain everything to her. I see, so what should we do now Arashi-kun? Well, first we need to find the other two and then we make a plan to take those bells. Hikari nodded her head at this. They were about to leave when they heard a yell which made them turn around quickly, only to spotted one Uchiha Sasuke flying toward them while holding his ass. What the Hikari exclaimed before Sasuke flew past them, but lucky for him, Arashi acted fast and caught him before he hit the ground. Soon Hikari jumped from the branch and joined her teammates on the ground with worry on her face. Hey Sasuke, what happened? Why did you yell like that? Let me guess, Kakashi-sensei used the hidden Taijutsu Aogi on you? Sasuke was surprised at first since Arashi knew it, but nodded anyway. I see, you got my pity there Sasuke. Arashi said while petting Sasuke's back. He could remember the first time his father used that attack on him because he pranked him when he visited his mindscape. It's safe to say that Arashi had never pranked his father anymore after that experience. Mind telling me what's going on here? Hikari asked only for her teammates to quickly shake their head. Something was better to be left out unknown. Oh well, since Sasuke's here all we had to do is find Sakura now. That's right, hey Sasuke, do you know where she is? We found out something about this test which maybe could make all of us pass. Hearing Arashi's words Sasuke nodded his head and pointed them to Sakura directions after Arashi made some cage bunchins to deal with Kakashi in the meantime. 15 minutes later in the middle of the training ground. I wonder what those genins are up to this time. Kakashi said to himself. He had finished defeating every Arashi coming toward him, which ended up to be cage bunchins, and that could only mean that Arashi was trying to stall him for some time. He was about to search for them when he saw a figure with a red head running toward him with a sword on his hand. What's he doing running from the front like that? Kakashi thought before he pulled a kunai to block the sword. Soon the two engaged each other in a sword fight while three pairs of eyes were watching from the forest. After several clash the two separated themselves and stood there while facing at each other with their weapons still on their hand. I must say that you're quite strong Arashi, but a genin like you won't be able to defeat me with only a sword. Arashi smiled behind his mask before he threw his sword from his right to his left hand, confusing Kakashi who said that I will fight you with sword alone. With that said Arashi dashed toward Kakashi again while gathering chakra on his right hand, making it glow a bit. A seal-less jutsu? Could it be Rasengan? No, this is different. Not wanting to take any risk Kakashi moved backward only to hit a tree behind him. Shit. This could be bad. Anu no Tsume. Arashi yelled, and soon his right hand was covered by burning red chakra, which shaped like a claw. Kakashi managed to dodge the slash from Arashi's right claw just a second before it hit, and after seeing the result, he was really glad that he decided to dodge. The tree with almost 60 centimeters in diameter which was behind him until a few seconds ago was sliced in two perfectly. To make things worse, when the upper part of the tree fell to the ground, he could see severe burn marks on the place where the cut was made. Hey Arashi, were you trying to kill me just now? Kakashi asked with a worried tone before Arashi turned toward him with a smile, which was way too kind for him. What are you talking about, sensei? How come a little genin like me tried to kill a seasoned jounin like you, haha? Arashi laughed with a tone which gave really cold shivers to Kakashi. Too bad for Kakashi, that act was distracting enough for Arashi to found an opportunity to throw a dozen of shurikens toward him. Having no time to dodge, Kakashi quickly pulled the kunai on his hand to block them when some poof sounds were heard and soon all the shurikens in front of him turned into cage bunchins. Ogpili. And soon Kakashi was stormed by the cage bunchins who pulled him to the ground and body slammed him. Arashi was about to go and took the bells when a yell was heard. This is bad. At this rate he's going to take a bell from me. How lucky that these bunchins forgot about the kunai on my hand. Kakashi quickly used the kunai to destroy some of the cage bunchins who held his hands before he go through a quick hand seals and yelled, Futin. Tatapa. The blast of wind quickly dispersed all of the cage bunchins around him before he jumped on his feet and faced Arashi once again. The problem was that Arashi had run toward him with full speed with his sword ready. Sorry, but that won't work Arashi. Kakashi said while throwing the kunai on his hand toward Arashi, but to his shock, Arashi didn't dodge the kunai as it pierced through his chest before he fell to the ground. What? Worried about Arashi's condition, Kakashi quickly ran toward him, but when he was about to touch him, his body turned into flower petals before 100 Arashi came into view. There's no way he could summon that much without me knowing. This must be a genjutsu. Kakashi quickly held 2 fingers up before concentrated his chakra. Hi. With that said, all the Arashi quickly disappeared, leaving only 4 Arashi on the field. So you still have some cage bunchins left, huh? I thought I've dispersed them all. Well, even if you disperse them I can still make some more, sensei. Arashi soon put his hand in cross seals. Soon he and his cage bunchins were covered by smoke, and when it died down there were 10 Arashi on the field. Alright sensei, let's see how you fight this time. Soon all of the Arashi dashed toward Kakashi, who just shrugged at seeing his student doing the same trick again and again before he cut through 4 cage bunchins which was coming toward him, leaving only 6 Arashi in the field. Another 2 Arashi were ready to punch Kakashi on the face before he ducked, making the 2 past him. The 2 didn't stop right there as they quickly turned around and threw a kick at Kakashi. Kakashi quickly lifted his arms to block them only for the kick to pass through him. While these are normal bunchins. But he was supposed to be unable to make them because of his big chakra capacity. Kakashi was cut from his thought when the other 4 Arashi dashed toward him from behind, so he quickly turned around and hit one of them, which resulted in a puff of smoke. He was about to pull his hand to hit another one when he realized that someone was holding his hand. Kakashi quickly turned back toward the cage bunchin to find out that the one he hit was none other than Sasuke. Don't tell me. Soon the other 2 Arashi quickly grabbed Kakashi's other hand and legs, while the last one made a dash behind him and took the bells just as the alarm clock rang. A moment later the 2 Arashi and Sasuke removed their grip on Kakashi, while the Arashi who hold the bells walked toward the other 3. Soon a poof sound was heard and 2 of the Arashi turned back into Sakura and Hikari, while the real Arashi who was standing next to Sasuke smiled at Kakashi. I see, so those cage bunchins were decoys, so I didn't notice the Hangen normal bunchins you guys made, huh? Kakashi said while gazing at each of his students. Yup, so how is it sensei? Did we pass the test? Arashi asked. One question though, who won't get the bell? Kakashi asked back. No one. Sakura said quickly. Excuse me? Kakashi said while raising one eyebrow. The reason why we could take those bells from you was because we work together as a team, so we won't sacrifice anyone just for ourselves. Hikari explained. Didn't I tell you before that the rule is one will return back to the academy? Kakashi said, emphasizing on the word will. Screw the rule, we are teammates and we won't abandon our friend. Sasuke said. Suit yourself then, you dare to break my rule, so all of you, Kakashi said with a dark looks on his face, making the 4 gulped past. Kakashi said while smiling warmly. The four genin blinked at those words before they looked at each other, and soon yells of happiness could be heard coming from the training ground 7.